Far below the blue surface, where the last memory of daylight has already been spent, something pale is falling. It moves slowly at first, almost too slowly to be noticed. A loose white fleck drifts past the black water, turns once, folds into itself, and continues downward. Another follows, then another. In the beam of a research submersible, the darkness fills with them, not like a storm, not like rain, but like a quiet weather no one on land was ever meant to see. There is no sky here. There are no clouds. There is only water pressing from every direction, cold and immense. And yet the ocean is snowing. A small animal waits on the mud below. Its body is almost the same color as the seafloor, a shape made for patience. It has no reason to chase sunlight, because sunlight will never come. It does not know the sun directly. It knows the sun only after it has been eaten, broken, softened, darkened, and sent down as fragments. It knows summer as a heavier fall of particles. It knows spring as a smell in the water, a change in the drifting dust. It knows the surface as a rumor that arrives in pieces. And this is the strange thing. The deepest ocean, the place that seems most removed from the living world above, is being fed by the remains of light. Every flake that turns in the blackness has a history. Some began as microscopic green cells floating near the surface, drinking carbon from the water and using sunlight to build their bodies. Some passed through the gut of a drifting animal. Some carry shell dust, clay, bacteria, oil, scales, eggs, mucus, fragments of wings from creatures that never touched the air. Some are not one thing, but a gathering, a temporary village of waste and life and decay, stitched together by invisible films and the small collisions of the sea. From a distance, it looks gentle. Up close, it is a traffic system, a food web, a climate machine, a slow avalanche of the planet's breath. A particle the size of a grain of sand may begin in warm surface water where everything is bright and crowded. It may pass through a layer of blue so clear it seems empty. It may sink into the twilight where fish rise at night and vanish by morning. It may be bitten, stripped, colonized, exhaled, abandoned, and caught again. It may never reach the bottom. Most do not. Most are consumed long before they find the abyss. But the ones that survive become part of a quiet exchange older than cities, older than farming, older than our idea of the world as separate from the ocean.
To understand the deep sea, we often imagine going downward. We picture depth as a place, a distance, a descent. But the deep ocean is not only below us, it is also downstream from everything that happens above. A bloom of plankton in the North Atlantic, a storm that stirs nutrients into light, a school of fish feeding in broken silver, a whale exhaling at the surface, a jelly body collapsing after reproduction, a grain of desert dust blown across an ocean basin, a shell formed in the upper water, then cracked, then swallowed, then released again. All of it can enter the long fall. The snow is not a symbol. It is food. It is memory. It is carbon traveling through darkness. And somewhere beneath the waves, in a silence so complete that even the idea of weather seems impossible, the ocean floor receives it, grain by grain. The first mystery is that the deep ocean is hungry. Not hungry in a dramatic sense, not starving all at once. Hungry in the way a world becomes hungry when the main source of energy is far away. Below a certain depth, sunlight is no longer a power. At the surface, light is everywhere. It flashes from waves, enters the water in trembling columns, and breaks into green and blue. But descend, and the colors vanish one by one. Red disappears early, orange follows, yellow weakens. the world narrows into blue, then into violet, then into a dimness the human eye cannot easily interpret. By a few hundred meters, the water is no longer a place for ordinary photosynthesis. By 1,000 meters, day and night have almost no meaning. The surface ocean is loud with production. It makes bodies. It makes oxygen. It makes sugar out of gas and light. It supports drifting forests so small they can pass through a needle's eye. It feeds animals that feed other animals, and in the chaos of that feeding, not everything is eaten cleanly. Life is untidy. It spills, it sheds, it leaves scraps. The deep ocean receives those scraps. But to say it receives them makes the process sound easy. It is not. The distance between the sunlit layer and the abyss can be greater than the height of mountains. A flake leaving the surface is not dropping through empty space. It is entering a living column of water. Every meter contains mouths, microbes, currents, chemical gradients, pressure changes, and time. The particle is falling through an empire of interruption.
A single piece of marine snow might be touched by bacteria within minutes. They settle on it as if it were an island. They release enzymes, soften its edges, mine it for energy. Tiny grazers shear off pieces. Zooplankton may eat it whole. A larvation may trap it in a house of mucus and later discard the whole structure, turning a delicate filter into another falling package. A fecal pellet may drop rapidly because it is compact and dense, then break apart when a small swimmer nips at it. A clear, gelatinous animal may create pellets that sink faster than the loose bodies of dead plankton around it. The snow is constantly being made and unmade. The word snow is almost too pretty. It hides the mess. There is elegance in it, but also waste, digestion, rot, and opportunism. It is the ocean's leftovers becoming someone else's main course. It is death made edible by gravity. It is the surface feeding the dark through a system no creature designed, no hand directs, and no single species understands. At night, the connection becomes even stranger. In the twilight zone, billions upon billions of animals rise toward the surface under cover of darkness. Small fish, squid, shrimp-like creatures, jelly forms, crustaceans with glassy eyes. They climb through the water to feed where food is more abundant, then retreat before dawn to hide in deeper layers. This daily migration is so large that early sonar operators sometimes mistook it for the sea floor moving upward at dusk and sinking again at sunrise. The ocean itself seemed to breathe. Those animals do not merely eat at the surface, they carry the surface downward inside their bodies. They feed in the night, descend in the morning, and release carbon at depth through respiration, waste, and death. In this way, the biological pump is not only a fall of particles, it is also a commute, a pulse, a vertical road traveled by living bodies. The deep sea depends on such roads. Without them, much of the abyss would be more barren than it already is. Hydrothermal vents and cold seeps create islands of chemical abundance, places where life can be powered by the energy of the earth itself. But these are exceptions, scattered fires on a vast, dark plain. Most of the deep ocean does not live near vents. Most of it waits under open water, below seasons it cannot see, depending on what sinks. And still, waiting does not mean stillness. The sea floor is worked and reworked by animals that seem, to us, slow beyond imagination. Sea cucumbers push through sediment, swallowing mud that contains organic traces. Brittle stars lift their arms into the current. Deep-sea corals hold out branching skeletons in the hope that something edible will drift past. Sponges filter what the water brings. Small crustaceans comb the surface,
Worms tunnel. Microbes breathe in chemical languages older than lungs. The snow does not fall evenly. In some places, it arrives as a faint dusting, a near-starvation ration spread over enormous time. In others, after a surface bloom, greenish mats of fresh phytoplankton debris can descend in pulses, carpeting the bottom with the remains of a season. The abyss may be dark, but it is not disconnected from spring. There are moments when cameras on deep seafloor observatories record a change that looks almost impossible. A plain that yesterday seemed bare is suddenly touched with pale material. Animals appear. Some move faster than expected, as if called by a bell. The feast is quiet, but it is a feast. The surface has sent news. Imagine the top of the ocean at dawn, not from above, but from within. The water is restless with small forms. Diatoms drift like glass boxes, their shells carved with geometries that would seem ornamental if they were not so useful. Coccolithophores carry tiny plates of calcium carbonate, each plate a mineral scale made in sunlight. Cyanobacteria, among the smallest architects on Earth, divide in warm, clear water. Dinoflagellates turn with their delicate whips. The whole sunlit layer is alive with bodies so small that a hand passing through them would feel only water. Yet these small bodies alter the air. They take carbon dioxide dissolved in seawater and make it part of themselves. When surface water loses some of that carbon dioxide, more can pass in from the atmosphere. The exchange is not a simple one-way door. The ocean breathes both in and out depending on temperature, chemistry, wind, and circulation. But the work of phytoplankton matters at planetary scale. It is one reason the ocean is not just a blue surface around continents, but an active organ in Earth's climate. Still, no phytoplankton cell thinks in climate. It does not intend to store carbon in the deep. It simply lives where light and nutrients overlap. It divides when conditions allow. It is eaten when someone finds it. It dies when the water changes, when nutrients thin, when viruses rupture it, when grazing pressure increases, when turbulence moves it away from light. Its body, which was once an act of photosynthesis, becomes a particle among particles. The beginning of marine snow is often not a dramatic death. It is ordinary loss. A cell leaks. A colony breaks. A grazer feeds imperfectly. A copepod makes a pellet. A transparent sheet of mucus, nearly invisible in the water, collects drifting debris. Sticky, dissolved organic matter gels into tiny flecks. Minerals add weight. Shell fragments act like ballast. Small pieces collide in turbulence and adhere. What was once dispersed begins to gather. The ocean is full of such gatherings. A flake can be soft, fragile, and porous, more like a wet cobweb than a stone. It may contain living microbes, dead cells, fecal material, bits of shells, grains of dust, and chemical gradients within a space smaller than a fingernail clipping. Oxygen may be consumed inside it. Acidity may change around it. Bacteria can alter the chemistry of the particles so intensely that the little falling world becomes different from the seawater around it. From the outside, it is debris. From the inside, it is habitat. There is a hidden intimacy in this. The deep ocean is not fed by perfect packages. It is fed by things that are already being transformed. A particle may be born in brightness and become darker as it sinks. Pigments fade, soft tissues break apart, bacteria multiply, the edges fray. It may merge with another particle, then another, becoming large enough to fall faster.
or it may be torn open and reduced to smaller fragments that linger in the upper water, where their carbon is returned sooner to dissolved forms. The fate of the particle depends on size, density, stickiness, mineral content, temperature, oxygen, the animals it encounters, and the microscopic life living on it.
The falling snow is therefore not one process, but many. It is physics and appetite. It is chemistry and chance. It is gravity negotiating with hunger. For a long time, people imagined the deep sea as nearly lifeless. It was too dark, too cold, too pressurized, too remote. The old assumption was not foolish. From the deck of a ship, the abyss gives almost nothing away. A line dropped into deep water returns with mud, if it returns at all. Early dredges tore up strange animals, but they came back damaged, removed from their world, more like rumors than witnesses. The deep did not seem like a place of weather, seasons, or connection. It seemed like an ending. Then cameras went down. Lights moved through the black water, and the snow appeared. In the beams of submersibles and remotely operated vehicles, marine snow is often the first thing visible, before the seafloor, before the animals, before the shape of the landscape. White flecks pass the lens. Some drift upward relative to the vehicle. Some whirl in the disturbance of thrusters. Some fall with a stubborn, almost solemn direction. For scientists trying to film a squid or a coral garden, the snow can be a nuisance, filling the frame. But it is also the scene itself. It is the medium through which the deep speaks. Each flake says that the abyss is not sealed. It says that an invisible forest far above has shed its leaves. The surface ocean does not look like a forest to us because its plants do not stand still. They bloom and disperse. They are stirred by eddies, grazed by animals, mixed by storms, carried by currents. Their seasons can be huge, visible from satellites as swirls of chlorophyll across entire ocean basins. A spring bloom in high latitudes can turn dark water green. The bloom rises when winter mixing has loaded the upper water with nutrients, and returning light allows phytoplankton to multiply. For a time, the ocean seems to manufacture life out of coldness and illumination. But blooms do not last. Nutrients run low. Grazers arrive. Viruses spread. Cells sink. The green fades from the satellite image. What remains is not disappearance, but transfer. Some carbon stays near the surface and is recycled quickly. Some becomes food for animals. Some returns to the water as carbon dioxide through respiration. Some joins the snow and starts down. In this way, a bloom is not only an event in the upper ocean, it is the beginning of a delayed message to the deep. Weeks later, far below, animals may respond to what happened in light they never saw. The abyss receives spring after spring has already ended above. It receives bloom as fallout, abundance as sediment, sunlight as edible dust. There is something almost impossible in the timing. The same event exists differently at different depths. At the surface, it is greenness. In the twilight, it is feeding. In the abyss, it is arrival. The ocean is not one clock. It is many clocks layered on top of one another. Near the surface, days matter. Light rises and falls, winds shift, plankton divide quickly. Predators track prey through hours. In the mesopelagic, dusk and dawn drive migrations that repeat with the reliability of breath. In the deep ocean, the signals are slower. A seasonal pulse may take time to fall. A whale carcass can feed a community for years.
Sediment accumulates by millimeters or less across centuries. Carbon can be hidden from the atmosphere for time spans longer than empires. Marine snow belongs to all of these clocks at once. It begins in the quick world. It passes through the migrating world. It ends, if it ends, in the slow world. To follow one particle is to follow a line between scales that rarely fit inside the human mind. A phytoplankton cell lives for days. A sinking aggregate may travel for weeks. A carbon atom that reaches deep water may be separated from the atmosphere for hundreds or thousands of years. If buried in sediment, it may enter a geological archive where time becomes almost unreadable.
The particle does not know any of this. It falls. The ocean above it thickens with evening. Small animals rise. The moon, if there is one, breaks on the surface, but only a dim suggestion reaches below. A copepod brushes the particle and tears away a piece. Bacteria continue their work. A transparent larvation house collapses nearby and joins the descent, adding a ghostly sheet of mucus and captured cells. The particle becomes larger. For a while, it sinks faster. Then, a current takes it sideways. This is another part of the story. Marine snow does not fall through a still cylinder of water. The ocean is layered and moving. Eddies turn. Internal waves lift and lower water that never touches air. Fronts gather particles along invisible boundaries. Turbulence can keep small fragments suspended or bring them together. The path downward is rarely straight. A particle may travel far from where it formed before it reaches depth. The deep sea below a bloom may not be directly under the bloom. The ocean tilts its messages. And as the particle moves, it is measured by hunger. A small fish may see it, or smell it, or sense the disturbance it makes. A gelatinous creature may intercept it without intention. Microbes may remove so much of its energy that by the time it reaches deeper water, it is no longer rich food, but a leaner remnant, a faded parcel. This thinning of nourishment with depth is one reason deep-sea animals are often built for efficiency. Many wait. Many move slowly. Many have bodies that conserve energy with almost exquisite discipline. Some have enormous mouths relative to their size because chance meals cannot be wasted. Some are soft and watery, less costly to build. Some carry light of their own, not to replace the sun, but to signal, lure, confuse, or vanish. The snow is abundant and insufficient at the same time. It is continuous, but much of it is poor. It is everywhere, but thinly spread. It is the main food source for vast areas of the deep, yet it arrives in fragments so small that an animal may spend its life tuned to scarcity. This gives the deep ocean its emotional character, if a place can be said to have one. It is not empty, it is restrained. Life there is not absent, it is careful. At the seafloor, the mud is not simply mud. It is the accumulated result of falling worlds. There are mineral grains from continents, volcanic dust, microscopic shells, the remains of plankton, the slow settling of bodies and fragments. In some regions, the sediment is pale with calcium carbonate from organisms that lived near the surface. In others, it is rich with silica from diatoms and radiolarians. In others, below depths where carbonate dissolves more readily, the seafloor may be red clay, receiving particles so slowly that a shark tooth or a meteorite fragment might rest exposed for ages. The bottom is an archive written by snow. Layer after layer, the ocean records changes in climate, circulation, biology, dust, chemistry, and extinction.
A core pulled from deep sediment is a column of time. Scientists split it open and read color, texture, shell chemistry, isotopes, pollen, ash. They find evidence of ice ages, warm intervals, oxygen changes, productivity shifts, volcanic events, and the rise and fall of organisms. What fell as food becomes history. What was once alive becomes a measurement of the planet's past. But before the snow becomes archive, it is eaten. A fresh pulse on the abyssal plain can draw animals from burrows and distances. Sea cucumbers may gather over patches of phytodetritus, the greenish remains of surface plankton blooms. Tiny crustaceans pick at the material. Bacteria bloom in the sediment. Worms feed and tunnel. The seafloor changes texture. Oxygen is consumed. Nutrients are released. The fallen material becomes part of bodies, breath, waste, and mud. There is no clean ending to the descent. Arrival is another beginning. A carbon atom in a sinking particle might be eaten by a sea cucumber and respired as dissolved carbon dioxide in deep water. It might be incorporated into tissue for a time, then released when the animal dies. It might be consumed by bacteria in sediment. It might dissolve into pore water. It might be buried. It might eventually return to the surface through the slow overturning of the ocean, coming back to air centuries later in a place far from where it entered. The pump is not a trap door. It is a circulation of delays.
Those delays matter. If carbon fixed at the surface is returned to the atmosphere quickly, its climate effect is different from carbon carried to depth and kept away for centuries. The depth at which organic matter is respired changes the length of separation from the air. Shallow recycling is like a short breath. Deep storage is like holding that breath through generations. The biological carbon pump does not make carbon vanish. It changes where carbon waits. This is why scientists care about the snow with such intensity. Not because it is beautiful, though it is. Not because it is strange, though it is. But because these fragile particles help regulate the composition of the atmosphere. They are part of the reason Earth's climate has the shape it does. The ocean takes up a vast share of human carbon dioxide emissions through multiple physical and biological processes. The biological pump is one piece of that system, a living mechanism built from countless small acts, a cell growing, a grazer feeding, a pellet sinking, a microbe breathing, an aggregate surviving long enough to reach deeper water. To measure, it is difficult. You cannot stand beneath the ocean with a bowl and collect the snowfall. You cannot easily watch a particle from birth to burial. The sea is too large, too dark, too moving, and the particles themselves are too fragile. Bring them to the surface, and pressure changes, temperature shifts, and handling can alter what they are. Shine light on them, and animals behave differently. Place an instrument in their path, and the instrument becomes part of the environment it is trying to observe. Still, people try. Sediment traps are lowered into the water column like quiet collectors. They wait at depth with open mouths, catching what falls during days, weeks, or months. When recovered, their cups contain a concentrated version of the invisible rain: pellets, shells, swimmers that wandered in, fragments, dust, pigments, carbon. Researchers sort, count, weigh, sequence, burn, dissolve, compare. They ask how much organic carbon left the surface, how much reached a given depth, what organisms contributed, how fast the material sank, and how much was transformed along the way. Robots now join the work. Cameras drift in the water, photographing particles without catching them. Autonomous floats profile through the ocean, sensing oxygen, nitrate, chlorophyll, backscatter, pH. Gliders move across remote seas. Moorings hold instruments in place through storms no human can remain above. New devices carry microscopes and imaging systems into the particle field, trying to see not only that snow is falling, but what kind of snow, how quickly, and in what condition. This is not just technology entering wilderness. It is a shift in imagination. For centuries, the ocean interior was too big to observe continuously. Scientists relied on stations, cruises, samples, moments. Now there is an attempt to see process, to watch the pump while it works. To understand the deep ocean, not as a static reservoir, but as a changing, breathing interior. Picture a research vessel at night in the Labrador Sea. The deck is wet. The air is cold enough to make hands ache through gloves. The ship moves in long, uneasy rises. Somewhere below, a mooring line descends into black water, holding cameras and traps at depths the crew cannot see. On deck, people speak in practical fragments. Winch speed, tension, battery status, weather window. Someone wipes salt from a screen. Someone else labels sample bottles in a lab where the lights are too bright for the hour. The work is repetitive and delicate. A sediment trap comes aboard with its collection cups sealed. The material inside may not look impressive. Brownish, greenish, stringy, granular. But to the people gathered around it, this is not sludge. It is a message from depth. It contains evidence of a bloom, a grazing community, a storm, a particle pathway, a carbon export event. It may help reveal whether a surface event became deep storage or was consumed in the upper water. Science often looks like this at the edge of discovery. Not like revelation, but like careful handling. A sample is filtered. A label is checked twice. A number is entered. A freezer door opens and closes. The ship rolls. Outside, the sea offers no explanation. Inside, a small amount of fallen matter is treated with the seriousness of a letter from another world.
And in some sense, it is.
The surface and the abyss are so different that material traveling between them crosses not only distance, but conditions of existence. Pressure increases by about 1 atmosphere every 10 meters. Temperature drops. Light disappears. Food becomes scarce. Oxygen may decline in certain layers and return in others depending on circulation. Animals change shape. Chemical reactions shift. A particle that survives this descent has endured a series of worlds stacked vertically. The twilight zone is perhaps the most mysterious of those worlds because it is neither bright nor truly dark. It is a place of silhouettes, migration, and concealment. Animals here often have bodies tuned to dimness, large eyes, reflective surfaces, transparent tissues, red or black coloration, rows of photophores that can erase their outline from below. Predators look upward for the faint shadow of prey against residual light. Prey counter with light of their own, matching the glow from above. Others become gelatinous, nearly invisible. The entire zone seems built around the fact that light is almost gone, but not entirely. Into this world falls the snow. Some of it is intercepted by animals that make their living in midwater. The twilight zone is not just a passage, it is a processing layer. Here, a great deal of organic matter is eaten, respired, repackaged, or fragmented before it can reach the deep. This is why the efficiency of the biological pump depends so strongly on what happens in the middle. The abyss receives not the full abundance of the surface, but what survives the twilight. The twilight is a gate made of mouths. At night, many of those mouths move upward. During the day, they return. The diel migration is sometimes described as the largest migration on Earth, not because the animals travel far horizontally, but because the biomass moving vertically is immense. From a human perspective, it is almost mythic. A hidden population rising every evening to graze under darkness, then sinking again before dawn. But it is not myth, it is routine. The ocean performs it daily with no audience.
This migration changes the fate of carbon. When animals eat near the surface and metabolize at depth, they transport carbon actively. Their waste can enter deeper layers. Their bodies may be eaten or sink when they die. Their movement itself links the bright and the dark.
The biological pump is therefore both falling snow and swimming appetite. The particle continues downward. By now, it may be smaller, darker, less nutritious, or it may have gained weight by clumping with mineral grains and other particles. Ballast matters. A soft aggregate without much density may drift slowly, giving microbes more time to consume it. Add silica from diatom shells or calcium carbonate from coccolithophores and foraminifera, and the particle may sink faster. Add fecal packaging, and the descent may accelerate. But ballast is not guaranteed to stay. Chemistry and biology can dissolve minerals. Microbes living on a particle can alter its local environment, changing whether calcium carbonate remains or disappears. A particle can lose weight while falling, and when it does, the carbon it carries may be returned shallower than expected. Even at the scale of a flake, there is drama. Not loud drama, not the drama of storms or predators breaking the surface. The drama of thresholds. Does the particle sink quickly enough? Is it eaten? Does it fragment? Does mineral ballast hold? Do bacteria consume its carbon before it reaches deeper water? Does it cross the depth where return to the atmosphere becomes slow? Does it become food or sediment or dissolved memory? The fate of a particle is small. The sum of many particles is planetary. This is one of the difficult lessons of the ocean. The biggest systems are often made from things that appear insignificant. A cell too small to see can participate in changing atmospheric chemistry. A pellet released by a zooplankton can carry carbon downward. A bacterial colony on a snowflake can affect whether that particle sinks or stalls. A shift in plankton community can change the density of falling matter across a region. A warming surface layer can alter nutrient supply, bloom timing, species composition, and export efficiency. The climate system is not only ice sheets, forests, smokestacks, and clouds. It is also flakes moving through darkness.
And yet the behavior of the sea is not simple. Warmer water can strengthen stratification, making it harder for nutrients from below to reach the sunlit zone in some regions. That can reduce productivity. But other places may change differently. Ice retreat can open new lighted water in polar regions, while also altering mixing, grazing, and food webs. Smaller phytoplankton may dominate where nutrients are scarce, producing particles that are more easily recycled near the surface. Larger diatoms, when abundant, may form heavier aggregates that export carbon more effectively. Zooplankton communities shift. Oxygen levels change. Acidification affects organisms that build calcium carbonate shells. The pump responds not as a machine with one lever, but as a living system with many moving parts. This uncertainty is not a weakness in the story. It is the story. The ocean is still not fully known. The deep is not a closed chapter. Even now, instruments entering the water find processes that complicate old assumptions. Particles do not always sink as expected. Microbes do not always behave as background agents. The twilight zone may store and transform more carbon than models once captured. Some sequestration may occur above the depths traditionally used as thresholds. Some carbon that seems exported may return sooner than hoped. Some may persist longer. The questions are not academic decorations. They matter to forecasts, to climate models, to decisions made far from the sea. But the snow itself keeps falling, indifferent to being understood. In the black water, there is no need for our categories. Organic carbon, particulate matter, remineralization, sequestration, export flux. These are names we give to follow the movement. The particle does not carry a label, it carries a past. A dead diatom, once suspended in green water, may sink inside a clump with fecal fragments. A bit of shell dust may ride beside it. Bacteria may bloom on its surface. A copepod may cut it open. A larvation filter may wrap it. The aggregate may pass below the reach of ordinary daylight, then below the layer where migrating animals concentrate, then into water that has not touched the atmosphere for a very long time.
The deeper it goes, the slower the world seems to become. There are fewer sudden changes. The temperature is low and stable. The pressure is immense. The water may be old, having traveled through global circulation from polar sinking regions, moving along deep pathways for centuries. In this world, a particle falling from above is an event, small but real. It brings surface chemistry into ancient water. It brings the upper ocean's briefness into the deep ocean's patience. At last, perhaps, it reaches the sea floor. It lands without sound. The mud receives it the way night receives ash. Bacteria respond first, then small animals. A deposit feeder may pass over it and take it into its body with sediment. The carbon enters another chain of transformations. Some of it becomes breath in deep water. Some becomes tissue. Some becomes waste. Some is buried under newer particles. The flake is gone, but its material continues. Nothing in the ocean is simply lost. Even loss is redistributed. The snow that feeds the deep ocean is not always white. Sometimes it is green, brown, gray, transparent, golden, almost invisible. Sometimes it falls as individual flecks, sometimes as stringy mats, sometimes as pellets dense enough to drop quickly, sometimes as the collapsed remains of gelatinous organisms, sometimes as a sudden shower after a bloom or storm, sometimes as the slow, steady dust of ordinary life above. The word snow is a human compromise, a way to make the invisible familiar. But familiarity can mislead. Land snow suggests cold air, winter, silence, clean surfaces. Marine snow is not clean. It is inhabited. It is decomposing as it falls. It is eaten while still becoming itself. It can smell chemically rich, microbial, faintly rotten when collected. It is not the opposite of decay. It is decay in motion. And still, it is beautiful. There is beauty in a system that wastes almost nothing. In an ocean where a dead cell becomes food, where waste becomes transport, where gravity carries the surface into the abyss. There is beauty in the fact that the deep sea, which seems separated from us by pressure and darkness, is connected to every breath taken above it. The carbon in a sinking particle may once have been part of the atmosphere. It may have passed into seawater, into a phytoplankton cell, into an animal, into a pellet, into deep water. The boundary between air and abyss is not a wall. It is a long, complicated conversation.
Humans entered that conversation without understanding it. For most of our history, the deep ocean was beyond reach. We fished the surface and shelves. We crossed the sea in ships. We feared storms, currents, reefs, monsters of imagination. The deep interior remained abstract. Only in recent centuries did sounding lines, dredges, and later sonar, submersibles, and satellites begin to reveal its form. Even now, large areas of the seafloor are less familiar to us than landscapes on other worlds. But the deep has always been part of our climate. It did not begin to matter when we began to measure it.
The snow was falling before there were names for it. It fell during ice ages when dustier winds fertilized parts of the sea. It fell during warm periods when circulation changed. It fell above ancient seafloors that would later become limestone cliffs. It fell after asteroid darkness, after volcanic pulses, after extinctions, after recoveries. It carried the remains of organisms whose descendants no longer exist. It built sediments that would one day be lifted into mountains or drilled by scientists searching for the past. Every deep-sea core is a kind of snowfall made solid. The layers do not speak in words, but they keep accounts. Ratios of oxygen isotopes whisper about ice volume and temperature. Carbon isotopes hint at productivity and circulation. Shell assemblages reveal which plankton lived above. Ash layers mark eruptions. Microfossils appear and vanish. The long fall becomes the long record. The ocean floor, silent and dark, is one of Earth's great libraries. Yet the living deep is not merely a library, it is present tense. A deep-sea coral may live for centuries, extending itself into currents that bring particles past its polyps. A sponge may filter vast amounts of water over time, extracting small edible traces. A fish may wait in darkness with reduced muscle and patient metabolism, conserving energy until opportunity comes. A brittle star may stand on the tips of its arms, lifted into flow. A sea pen may glow when touched. A Dumbo octopus may move through the water with slow, ear-like fins. A cusk eel may hover near the bottom, listening with its body to vibrations. Most of these lives are not spectacular in the way surface documentaries often demand. They are spectacular because they persist.
Persistence is the deep ocean's art. To persist there means accepting that abundance may be irregular. It means surviving on particles, on carrion, on the occasional fall of a larger body, on chemical energy if one is near vents or seeps, on symbioses, on patience. Marine snow is the background ration that makes much of the ordinary deep possible. Not always enough for quick life, but enough for a world. When a whale dies and sinks, it becomes a different kind of event. A banquet, a habitat, an island of richness in the desert of the abyss. Hagfish, sharks, amphipods, worms, bacteria, and specialized communities may arrive in stages, transforming the carcass over years. A whale fall is not marine snow in the usual sense. It is too large, too singular, but it belongs to the same downward logic. What is made near the surface eventually returns to depth. The ocean does not draw a moral line between the small flake and the giant body. Both are food when they fall. There are also gelatinous falls, jellyfish blooms collapsing, salps sinking, fragile bodies descending in numbers. These can deliver pulses of carbon quickly, though they may be consumed or decomposed differently from harder particles. The sea has many ways to send itself downward. Some of the most important actors are nearly invisible. Bacteria are not simply cleaners arriving after the real story has ended. They are engineers of transformation. On a marine snow particle, microbial communities can change the chemical conditions in and around the flake. They break down organic molecules. They respire carbon. They release nutrients. They may dissolve mineral ballast, changing sinking speed. They can determine whether a particle carries its carbon deeper or gives it back sooner. A particle is therefore not a passive package falling through water. It is an active microbial world, consuming itself as it travels. This is why the snow is so hard to model. A model can estimate production at the surface, particle size, sinking speed, temperature, grazing, respiration. But each variable opens into more variables. Which organisms bloomed? Were they small cells or large diatoms? How many grazers were present? Did salps form dense pellets? How sticky was the dissolved organic matter? Were minerals available for ballast? How warm was the water column? Which microbes colonized the particles? How much oxygen was present? Did currents concentrate the snow or disperse it? Did storms inject fresh nutrients or disrupt layers? Did a dust event supply iron to a remote region? Did animals migrate deeply or shallowly?
The ocean does not simplify itself for calculation. And still, models improve, observations improve, instruments become more patient. Satellites watch surface color, floats carry chemical sensors, genetic tools identify organisms from traces of DNA, cameras count particles, traps catch flux. Ships return to time series stations year after year, building records that can reveal change. Scientists compare the open ocean to coastal waters, polar seas to subtropical gyres, productive upwelling zones to blue deserts. They are trying to learn not just that the snow falls, but how each region makes its own weather. In polar seas, the story can be dramatic. Long darkness gives way to returning light. Ice retreats or thins. Nutrients mixed upward during winter meet sun. Blooms can erupt with intensity, feeding zooplankton, fish, birds, whales, and ultimately the deep. Some particles sink rapidly in cold water. Some are trapped under ice. Some become part of food webs adapted to seasonal extremes. As the climate warms, these timing relationships shift. A bloom that once matched the hunger of grazers may occur earlier. Ice algae may change. Fresh water from melting ice can alter stratification. The snow still falls, but the calendar that shaped it may be changing. In subtropical gyres, the surface can look like a blue desert. Clear, beautiful, nutrient-poor. Productivity is lower, particles smaller, recycling efficient. Much organic matter may be consumed before it sinks far. The deep below receives a leaner supply. Yet even in these clear waters, the snow exists. It may be faint, but it is not absent. Life learns to live on small economies. In upwelling regions, deep water brings nutrients toward light. Productivity can be high. Food webs flourish. Particles may rain downward more heavily. Oxygen can be consumed as organic matter decomposes, contributing to oxygen minimum zones. Here, the snow connects not only surface and depth, but life and chemistry in ways that can shape entire ecosystems. The planet has no single oceanic snowfall. It has many. Some are seasonal, some are steady, some are sudden. Some are enhanced by storms that mix nutrients upward, or by eddies that trap and transport blooms. Some follow the paths of dust from continents. Some depend on iron delivered to remote waters. Some are altered by fisheries, removing animals that might otherwise package or transport carbon. Some are changed by warming, acidification, deoxygenation, and shifting currents. The snow is local and global at once. A particle falls in one place. The pump matters everywhere. This is one reason the subject feels larger the longer we stay with it. At first, it seems like a curiosity. Strange underwater flakes feeding strange animals. Then it becomes an ecosystem. Then a carbon pathway. Then a climate regulator. Then an archive.
Then, a reminder that Earth's most important processes are often not the ones that announce themselves. The sea does not need to be dramatic to be decisive. A white fleck crossing a beam of light in the abyss may have more to do with the air above our heads than a thunderstorm we can see. A microbial colony on a sinking particle may participate in the same planetary accounting as forests, soils, ice, and fossil fuels. The ocean's interior, hidden from everyday human life, helps decide how much carbon remains near the surface and how long it stays away from the atmosphere. This does not mean the ocean can simply absorb whatever we add. That is another dangerous simplification. The ocean is vast, but it is not infinite in function. Warming changes its layers. Acidification changes its chemistry. Deoxygenation changes habitats. Ecosystems change when species shift or decline. The biological pump is resilient because it is ancient and distributed, but it is not immune. Its future depends on countless interactions we are still learning to see. The snow that feeds the deep is not a solution handed to us. It is a living process we disturb at our peril and study with humility.
Go back to the beginning of one flake. Before it fell, before it clumped, before bacteria turned its edges soft. It was part of an organism floating near the surface. Perhaps a diatom in a spring bloom, shaped like a tiny glass lantern. It drifted in water mixed by wind. Around it were other cells, predators, viruses, dissolved molecules, mineral dust, and the faint turbulence of a sea beginning to stratify as the weather warmed. The cell divided. Its descendants multiplied. For a while, there was enough nitrate, phosphate, silicate, iron, and light. The bloom spread. From above, a satellite saw color. From within, the bloom was a crowd. Copepods grazed, beating their appendages through the water. Some cells escaped. Some were broken. Some passed through guts and emerged as pellets, compacted and altered. Some died and released sticky substances. Transparent exopolymer particles formed, invisible glue in the water. Tiny fragments collided. A flake began. At first, it barely sank. It was porous, irregular, easily moved by turbulence. Bacteria arrived. More debris adhered. A bit of fecal material stuck to it. A mineral shell fragment added weight. The aggregate became large enough to settle faster. It entered water where the light was dimmer and the temperature lower. The bloom above continued without it. For a while, the flake was part of the upper ocean's recycling. A micro-zooplankton grazed its surface. Bacteria respired some of its carbon. A small crustacean brushed it and broke away a piece, but it survived as a recognizable aggregate. It passed through the lower edge of the sunlit zone, crossing an invisible border. Above, photosynthesis continued. Below, photosynthesis was no longer possible. The color changed. The water became a more uniform blue, then darker, then almost black. The flake entered the mesopelagic, the twilight zone. Here, animals lived between exposure and concealment. Lanternfish hovered in layers. Siphonophores stretched delicate feeding structures. Squid watched for movement. Gelatinous houses built by larvaceans filtered particles from the water, then clogged and were abandoned, sinking like discarded rooms. The flake joined fragments from many sources. For a moment, it caught in a mucus net. Then the net collapsed. Now, the flake was part of something larger. It sank faster. Near dawn, migrating animals descended around it. Some had fed at the surface all night and now carried their meals downward. A fish released waste at depth. Those pellets fell too. the water column filled with different kinds of downward motion. Passive particles, active swimmers, chemical transformations, respiratory carbon, abandoned filters, bodies, scales. The flake was no longer only a remnant of one diatom bloom. It had become a composite of the water column itself. This is why marine snow is difficult to define with clean edges. It is not one ingredient. It is a process made visible as a particle. The farther it falls, the more its origin becomes mixed with its journey. At 700 meters, perhaps, part of it was eaten. At 900, another part broke off. At 1,000, it crossed a depth that scientists sometimes use as a marker for deep export, though the ocean does not care about our markers. The remaining particle was smaller now, but denser. It entered a world where the water was colder and movement slower. Microbial activity continued, but the particle still carried organic material. It had survived the most crowded layers. Below, the abyss waited. The abyssal plain is one of the largest habitats on Earth. It is not flat everywhere, but much of it spreads in long, quiet expanses of sediment broken by hills, seamounts, trenches, scars, nodules, burrows, tracks, and the occasional fall of larger matter. It is dark, cold, pressurized, and enormous beyond easy imagination. On maps, we see the ocean as blue space between continents. In reality, below that blue surface lies a world of mountains, plains, fractures, volcanoes, and basins, most of them unseen by human eyes. The abyss does not look hungry in the way a mouth looks hungry. It looks calm. A camera lands and shows mud, a few animals, drifting flecks. But the calm is misleading. Every surface is part of a food economy. Every particle matters. In places where the snow is sparse, the sediment may contain just enough organic matter to support slow microbial life and scattered animals. In places where productivity above is high, more active communities may develop. The difference between scarcity and modest abundance can depend on events far overhead.
When the flake finally settles, it does not remain alone for long. Microbes in the sediment begin using it. A deposit feeder may discover it by chemical sense, not sight. The particle becomes less a flake than a patch, then less a patch than a trace. Its carbon disperses through bodies, water, and mud. Some enters dissolved inorganic carbon in deep water. Some is buried with sediment. Some becomes part of a worm or a bacterium or another animal that will later die and become snow again, though now born from the sea floor rather than the surface. The story loops. The ocean is full of loops that look like lines when we observe only a fragment. A falling particle seems to move from top to bottom, but the carbon within it belongs to cycles. It may return to surface waters through upwelling after centuries. It may enter the atmosphere again. It may be fixed by another phytoplankton cell. It may sink again. Or, if buried and preserved, it may remain locked away over geological timescales, participating in slower carbon cycles that shape Earth across millions of years. Marine snow is one path in a system of return. This is perhaps what makes it philosophically powerful without needing to become abstract. It shows that the world is not arranged in separate layers of meaning, surface and depth, life and death, waste and food, atmosphere and ocean, moment and epic. These categories are useful, but the snow passes through them. It is made from living bodies and feeds living bodies. It is waste and nourishment. It is decay and transport. It is small and planetary. It is temporary and archival.
it is also vulnerable to being overlooked precisely because it is ordinary. The ocean does not wait for rare events to function. It works through constant small exchanges. A vast system can be driven by a faint, continuous rain. The deep sea can be fed by particles most people will never see. Climate can be influenced by organisms that never form leaves, trunks, flowers, or visible forests. The world can depend on the almost invisible.
There is a kind of humility in that. Not the humility of being small in a universe of stars, though that is real too. The humility of realizing that even on our own planet, within the water that covers most of its surface, essential work is being done beyond our sight by fragile beings and decaying fragments. The deep ocean is not waiting for our imagination to make it meaningful. It has always been meaningful. We are late to notice. To watch marine snow fall is to watch connection made physical. A scientist looking through a submersible window may see only specks in the light and still understand that those specks came from a different world. Above them may be waves, wind, birds, ships, satellites, continents, cities, exhaust, forests, farms, clouds. Below them may be mud, pressure, ancient water, animals adapted to darkness. The specks move between these realms without ceremony. They are the ocean's quiet messengers. At times, the falling snow can be so thick in camera lights that it resembles a blizzard. At other times, only a few flakes cross the frame. This variation matters. A heavier fall may mean recent productivity above, strong export, rapid sinking, or local concentration by currents. A thin fall may mean low surface production, strong recycling in upper layers, or a different particle community. Each visual scene hints at a larger, invisible context. But the eye can be fooled. A bright field of particles in a camera beam does not automatically tell how much carbon is being transported. Some particles are carbon-rich, others are mineral-heavy. Some sink fast, some hover. Some are fresh, some are degraded. Some are alive with microbes, some have already lost much of their energy. The appearance of snow is only the beginning of measurement, not the end. This is why the science asks for patience. There is no single photograph that explains the pump. There are datasets, time series, comparisons, traps, floats, genetic samples, chemical analyses, models tested and revised. The romance of the deep sea meets the discipline of repeated observation. Both are needed. Wonder without measurement drifts into fantasy. Measurement without wonder forgets why the question matters. In the lab, a marine snow particle under magnification becomes a landscape. Fibers cross, cells attach, bacteria cluster. Mineral grains sit like stones in a translucent matrix. Tiny organisms graze at the edges. The particle may be only millimeters wide, but within it are gradients and interactions. Oxygen outside may be higher than oxygen inside. Acidity can vary. Enzymes break long molecules into smaller ones. The particle becomes a microenvironment, a falling ecosystem. Scale shifts again. The deep ocean is enormous. The particle is tiny, but the particle itself contains a world. And within that world, microbes alter the fate of molecules that, multiplied across the ocean, influence global carbon storage. The planet hides consequences inside smallness. One of the most haunting aspects of marine snow is how much of it is consumed before reaching the bottom. The image of snow falling to the seafloor is true, but incomplete.
If every bit of organic matter produced near the surface sank untouched into the abyss, the deep ocean would be far richer, the atmosphere different, the sediment record altered. Instead, the water column eats the snow. The descent is also a loss. With every meter, some particles vanish into metabolism. They become carbon dioxide dissolved in water, nutrients, microbial biomass, animal tissue. The rain thins as it falls. Scientists sometimes speak of attenuation, the decrease in particle flux with depth. The word is technical, but the reality is almost intimate. The deep receives less because life above it is also hungry. The twilight does not merely pass food downward, it takes its share. This creates a tension at the heart of the pump. The ocean's ecosystems need recycling near the surface to sustain productivity. Nutrients released in upper layers can be used again by phytoplankton if light is available. But carbon returned shallowly is more likely to exchange with the atmosphere sooner. Carbon carried deeper is stored longer, but less available to the upper food web. The ocean is always balancing between feeding life now and delaying carbon's return.
No mind balances it. The balance emerges from interactions. The shape of a plankton cell, the appetite of grazers, the stickiness of organic matter, the size of fecal pellets, the depth of migration, the warmth of the water, the mineral content of shells, the speed of sinking, the patience of microbes, the structure of currents. From these details comes a planetary pattern. At the surface, the day may seem ordinary. A swell passes, flying fish scatter. A line of cloud forms near the horizon. The water looks empty except for glitter. Under a microscope, it is crowded. Under satellite sensors, it has color. Under the language of chemistry, it exchanges gases. Under the patience of gravity, it is already making snow. Somewhere below that surface, a larvation beats its tail inside a delicate house. The house filters particles from the water, concentrating food from what seems nearly invisible. As the filter clogs, the animal abandons it and builds another. The discarded house sinks, carrying captured particles downward. Something so fragile that it would collapse in a human hand becomes a vehicle of export. The ocean uses delicacy as infrastructure. Elsewhere, salps drift in chains, feeding efficiently on phytoplankton. Their dense pellets may sink quickly, sending carbon downward before much of it can be respired near the surface. In some conditions, these gelatinous animals can become important exporters. In other conditions, different grazers dominate, and the fate of carbon changes. The food web is not just who eats whom, it is also how digestion packages the future. A copepod pellet is a small cylinder of consequence. A diatom's glass shell is ballast and archive. A coccolithophore's carbonate plate is armor, chemistry, and sinking weight. A bacterial enzyme is a tool that can redirect carbon's path. The snow is built from such ordinary miracles. If this sounds too grand, return to the flake in the dark. It has no grandeur. It tumbles. It is ragged. It is half-eaten. It may be gone within the hour. Its importance comes not from itself alone, but from repetition. Again and again, across the global ocean, day after day, particles form and fall. The pump is not an event. It is a habit of the biosphere. The atmosphere above us is shaped by habits. Forests growing and burning, soils breathing, oceans absorbing and releasing gas, plankton blooming and sinking, ice forming and melting, rocks weathering, volcanoes venting. humans extracting ancient carbon and returning it to air at speed. The carbon cycle is not a diagram with arrows. It is a set of lived processes, many of them hidden, some fast, some slow, some damaged, some resilient. Marine snow is one of the arrows made real. It teaches that a downward motion can be a climate process, that a sinking pellet can matter, that deep storage begins as surface life, that the abyss is not a void beneath the world, but part of the world's metabolism. There is another contradiction in the snow. It feeds the deep ocean, yet the deeper it carries carbon, the more it removes that carbon from the quick circulation that feeds the surface. It supports life below while participating in the sequestration of material away from above. It is generosity and withdrawal at the same time. The ocean is full of such contradictions because it is not organized around human categories of purpose. What feeds one realm may deprive another. What stores carbon may limit nutrient return. What sinks quickly may feed fewer midwater organisms but sequester more. What is eaten in the twilight may support vast animal communities, but reduce abyssal supply. There is no single good outcome from every perspective. There is only the living complexity of the system. This is why simplistic attempts to manipulate the pump can be risky. Ideas such as adding nutrients to stimulate plankton growth have been discussed for decades. In theory, more phytoplankton could mean more carbon export. In practice, the outcome depends on which organisms grow, how food webs respond, whether carbon sinks deeply, how oxygen and chemistry change, and what unintended effects unfold. The ocean is not a storage tank waiting to be optimized. It is a living, planet-scale system. To push one part is to touch many others.
The natural snow reminds us that carbon storage is not just production. It is survival through layers. A bloom at the surface is only the first act. If the carbon is eaten and respired near the surface, storage is brief. If it becomes particles that sink into deeper water, storage lengthens. If it reaches sediment and is buried, it enters slower time. The pump's strength depends on the whole journey, not merely the beginning. A human watching the surface may miss the journey completely. The sea after a bloom may look ordinary again. The green fades, waves resume their blue. But below, the consequences continue falling. A surface event can remain active in the water column after it has vanished from view. The ocean remembers vertically. This vertical memory is everywhere. A storm mixes nutrients upward, then, weeks later, particles sink. A dust plume supplies iron to iron-limited waters, then productivity changes, then export changes. A change in sea ice affects light and blooms, then grazing, then snow, then benthic food. A shift in plankton size changes particle formation, then carbon depth, then deep oxygen demand. Nothing happens only where it appears to happen. The snow that feeds the deep ocean is therefore also the snow that reveals the ocean's unity. Not unity as sameness. The surface and abyss could hardly be more different. Unity as dependence. The surface makes what the deep receives. The deep stores what the surface releases. The water column transforms what passes through. The atmosphere exchanges with the surface. Climate alters the conditions of production. Life responds. Matter moves. If the ocean could be seen all at once, not as a blue skin, but as a transparent body, perhaps we would see vast columns of transformation. Sunlight entering from above. Carbon crossing the air-sea boundary, plankton blooming in the lit skin, Animals feeding and migrating. Particles falling. Microbes glowing chemically in the imagination, consuming and releasing. Currents sliding along density surfaces. Deep water moving slowly across basins. Snow reaching mud. Sediment recording.
We would see Earth breathing downward. But we cannot see all at once. We see fragments. A satellite image, a bottle sample, a microscope slide, a trap cup, a submersible beam, a graph of carbon flux, a sediment core, a deep-sea animal with mud on its body. Each fragment is partial. Together they form a story still being assembled. The simplest truth could be this: the surface is not the end of sunlight. Light becomes life. Life becomes snow. Snow becomes deep food. Deep food becomes storage, breath, sediment, and return. The sun touches the abyss through transformation. No ray of sunlight reaches the abyssal plane, and still, the abyss is full of sunlight's remains. This is not metaphor in the loose sense. The chemical energy in organic matter sinking downward was built in the sunlit ocean. The deep animal eating a particle is, indirectly, consuming energy captured far above. The surface and deep are separated by darkness, but not by origin. There are moments when this becomes visible with almost painful clarity. A deep-sea cucumber moves across a patch of fresh phytodetritus, its feeding tentacles gathering greenish material from the mud. That green was once chlorophyll. It was part of cells that floated in light. Now it lies under kilometers of water, being eaten by an animal that may never rise. The distance between sunlight and the mouth of that animal is enormous. The connection is direct. Or imagine a deep coral polyp extending into the current. It cannot photosynthesize. It may live where no plant can grow. Yet it captures particles and small organisms delivered by moving water, many ultimately tied to surface production. Its skeleton may grow slowly, ring by ring, holding a record of ocean chemistry. It stands in darkness, built partly from the rain of another world. The deep sea is not only fed by falling particles, it is shaped by them. Where more organic matter arrives, communities differ. Where currents concentrate particles around seamounts or canyon walls, filter feeders can thrive. Submarine canyons may funnel organic material from continental shelves into deeper water. Slopes may receive landslides, turbidity currents, and pulses of coastal productivity. Open abyssal plains receive a more diffuse rain. The geography of food creates the geography of life. Even the absence of snow has structure. In the poorest regions, animals may be sparse, smaller, slower, more widely spaced. Tracks in mud may last because disturbance is rare. A single foodfall can attract organisms from surprising distances. The seafloor becomes a landscape of waiting. Waiting is not emptiness. It is a form of adaptation. A deep fish hovering in black water does not need constant speed. Muscle is expensive. Movement is expensive. A large stomach may be useful if meals are unpredictable. Bioluminescence may help find prey or mates in a world where bodies are scattered. Long lifespans may make sense where growth is slow. The deep ocean's creatures are not failed versions of surface animals. They are answers to different questions. The snow asks one of those questions every day. How do you live on what falls? Different creatures answer differently.
Some filter, some gather, some scavenge. Some farm symbiotic microbes near chemical sources. Some wait for carcasses. Some migrate. Some make the snow sink faster by packaging it. Some intercept it and keep carbon in the twilight. Some break it into smaller pieces. Some bury it. No creature sees the whole pump. Each participates from its own need. Humans are unusual because we try to see the whole thing, and dangerous because we may believe seeing is the same as mastering. The more we learn about marine snow, the more it resists simple mastery. It is too diffuse for easy control, too complex for single explanations, too biologically alive for purely mechanical thinking. It is made from countless organisms responding to conditions in their own ways. Its strength varies by region and season. Its future changes with climate. It is not a conveyor belt. It is a weather system made of life. Perhaps that is why the phrase marine snow endures. Snow on land also hides complexity. Each flake forms through physical conditions in clouds. Snowpack stores water, reflects sunlight, insulates soil, shapes rivers, affects avalanches, feeds ecosystems. It is beautiful, but it is also infrastructure. Marine snow is similar only in appearance, yet the comparison opens a door. It lets us feel that the ocean has weather inside itself, not weather of wind and air, but weather of particles and decay.
Underwater winter never ends, but underwater spring arrives in pulses. After a bloom, the rain thickens. After a storm, patterns shift. After a mass spawning, after a jelly bloom, after a dust event, after ice retreat, after upwelling, the deep may receive more or different material. The snow is an atmosphere of consequences. In the upper ocean, the particles may be too small to see, but in deep lights, they become visible because everything else is dark. This is one of the ironies of the abyss. Darkness reveals the falling matter that brightness hides. At the surface, marine snow is lost in glare and movement. In the deep, each fleck catches artificial light and appears suddenly, almost theatrically, before vanishing again. A submersible pilot may dim the lights to watch an animal. The snow disappears. Turn the lights back on, and the storm returns. It was never gone. So much of the ocean is like that. Not absent when unseen, only unavailable to our senses. The deep sea teaches patience, not because it is calm, but because it refuses quick comprehension. Its processes are continuous, but slow to reveal themselves. Marine snow falls everywhere, but understanding its consequences requires instruments across years, depths, and basins. The abyss is fed constantly, but the feeding is subtle. The pump shapes climate, but not in a way that can be witnessed in a single scene. We are forced to think across scales. This is difficult for a species drawn to events. We notice storms, fires, floods, heat waves, extinctions, blooms when they color the sea, whales when they surface, ice when it breaks. Marine snow is not usually an event. It is the aftermath of events and the cause of other consequences. It is a middle process. Human attention is often poor at middles. We like beginnings and endings. The ocean is made of transitions. A particle falling through the water column is a transition given form. It is no longer the living cell it once was, not yet the sediment it may become. It is not fully surface, not fully abyss. It carries energy, but loses it.
It is dead material filled with living microbes. It is fragile, but participates in a durable planetary pattern. It is the kind of thing that unsettles categories, and therefore the kind of thing that teaches.
In the deepest trenches, the story continues under even greater pressure. The hadal zones, those narrow, plunging scars in the seafloor, can lie more than 6,000 meters down. Some reach nearly 11,000 meters. There, pressure is crushing beyond ordinary intuition. Yet, life exists. Amphipods, microbes, sea cucumbers, fishes in some trenches, organisms adapted to a world where the water column above is almost unimaginably tall. Food can arrive from surface production, from material funneled down slopes, from landslides, from carcasses, from chemosynthetic sources in some settings. Snow still matters, though its journey is longer and its transformation more extreme. In trenches, the topography may concentrate organic matter. The walls and slopes can funnel particles downward. Earthquakes can trigger sediment movement. The deepest places are not necessarily the emptiest in the way a flat plain might be. Depth alone does not determine food. Shape and flow matter. The seafloor is not a uniform bowl. It is a landscape that gathers and redirects. This is another hidden feature of the snow. It follows form. Particles fall through water, but currents and topography can guide where they settle. Seamounts can accelerate currents and enhance feeding opportunities for suspension feeders. Canyons can transport shelf material into the deep. Margins can receive more terrestrial and coastal organic matter. Open gyres may deliver little. The rain is global, but the landing is geographical. A particle's destiny may depend on the invisible architecture of the sea. And because the sea is changing, the architecture of the snow may change as well. Not only physical currents, but biological communities. If smaller plankton dominate in warmer, stratified waters, particles may be recycled shallower. If gelatinous grazers increase in some regions, export pathways may change. If ocean acidification affects carbonate-forming organisms, ballast may change. If deoxygenation expands, microbial and animal processing may shift. If fishing alters mesopelagic communities in the future, active carbon transport could be affected. These are not certainties everywhere. They are questions with consequences. The deep ocean may seem protected by distance, but distance is not protection from chemistry, temperature, oxygen, or falling food. What changes above eventually descends. This does not always happen quickly. The deep can delay and buffer. Its water masses turn over slowly. Its ecosystems may respond over long times. But delay should not be mistaken for immunity. A message sent into the ocean may arrive later, altered, but it can arrive. Marine snow is one of the delivery systems. There is something unsettling in the idea that our actions at the surface may change the diet of animals we will never see. A creature moving over abyssal mud may one day live under a different rain because the upper ocean has warmed, acidified, stratified, or shifted species. It will not know why the particles changed. It will only encounter more or less, richer or poorer, faster or slower, different in chemistry and timing. The abyss experiences the Anthropocene as falling matter, changing water, and altered scarcity. The deep sea has no newspapers. It has flux. Still, the snow is not only a warning, it is also a source of awe, because it shows that Earth has already evolved intricate ways of moving matter through itself. Long before human industry, the biological pump helped maintain a climate in which life could flourish. Long before carbon accounting, plankton and gravity were performing planetary work. Long before anyone spoke of sequestration, the ocean was carrying carbon into darkness. The tragedy would be to notice this only as a service. The ocean does not exist to serve us. The deep sea is not valuable only because it influences climate. Marine snow is not meaningful only because it moves carbon. It is also the basis of lives, interactions, histories, and forms of beauty that would continue to matter even if no human could measure them. The carbon pump language is necessary. It is also incomplete. A sea cucumber feeding under 4 kilometers of water is not a climate device. It is an animal living its own life. The clearest understanding of the ocean has to hold both truths. The snow feeds the deep. The snow regulates carbon. The snow is made of death. The snow is alive with microbes. The snow is beautiful. The snow is messy. The snow is planetary. The snow is local. The snow is not ours. When the surface is rough with weather, the snow continues below. Wind tears whitecaps across the sea. Rain strikes the waves. A ship rolls. Satellites see cloud. But beneath the storm, particles are forming, colliding, sinking, breaking. Some storms can deepen mixing and supply nutrients, setting up future blooms. Others can disrupt layers and redistribute particles. The weather above becomes part of the weather within. When the surface is calm, the snow continues below. A blue ocean under a clear sky may seem empty, almost sterile. Yet small cells are growing where nutrients allow. Grazers are feeding. Pellets are dropping. Bacteria are working. Calm does not mean inactivity. It only means the action is small, distributed, and hidden. When night falls, the snow continues below. Migrators rise, predators follow. The upper ocean becomes a field of risk and feeding. Some carbon moves upward in bodies, then downward again before dawn. The snow intersects with this living elevator. Dawn arrives at the surface in gold, but in the twilight it arrives as danger. Animals descend, waste sinks, the pump pulses. When winter darkens polar seas, the snow changes. When spring returns, it changes again. When ice melts, when dust falls, when currents shift, when upwelling strengthens or weakens, when plankton communities turn over, the snow changes. The deep ocean is not watching the seasons, but it is receiving them. In human life, snowfall often quiets a landscape. It muffles sound, covers edges, changes the way distance feels. Marine snow does not quiet the deep sea in that way. The deep is already quiet to us. Instead, it reveals motion inside stillness. It shows that what appears empty is being crossed by matter. It gives texture to darkness. Texture matters.
The ocean interior is sometimes described as a volume, a reservoir, a mass of water. But for animals living there, it is not abstract volume. It is habitat, filled with gradients, particles, signals, dangers, and opportunities. Marine snow adds structure to the open water. It creates patches of food in 3 dimensions. It provides surfaces for microbes. It can carry chemical cues. It can aggregate organisms. It can become a brief center in a space with no walls. A falling flake is a small place. For a bacterium, it is a continent. For a zooplankton, it may be a meal. For a model, it is a term. For the climate, it is one tiny act in a vast delay. For the deep sea, it is dinner. The deeper we go into the subject,
the more the word feeds expands. Feeding is not only the direct act of an animal eating a particle. Feeding is also supplying microbes with organic matter, feeding sediment chemistry, feeding long-lived corals through currents, feeding the formation of deep-sea mud, feeding the burial of carbon, feeding scientific understanding, feeding our sense of connection. But the primary feeding remains literal. In a place without photosynthesis, organic matter from above is survival. A deep-sea animal does not need philosophy. It needs energy. Energy arrives as fragments. There is a tenderness in that, though tenderness may be our word, not the ocean's. A world of crushing pressure and darkness is sustained by delicate flakes. A plain larger than continents receives its food in pieces that can be torn by a small current. The abyss depends in part on fragility. This dependence complicates our idea of strength. We often imagine powerful systems as hard, fast, loud, centralized. The biological pump is soft, slow, quiet, and distributed. It has no engine room. Its components die constantly. It is leaky. It is imperfect. It loses material along the way, and still, it helps shape the planet. A leaky pump can still be essential. Perhaps all living systems are like this. Not perfect machines, but persistent patterns made from losses that become inputs elsewhere. A forest drops leaves and feeds soil. A coral reef sheds mucus and feeds microbes. A grassland burns and returns nutrients. A whale dies and feeds the deep. A phytoplankton bloom collapses and becomes snow. The biosphere is not offended by waste. It specializes in using it.
Marine snow is waste with a future. It is what happens when the ocean refuses to let endings stay simple. Consider the chemistry again, but slowly. At the surface, carbon dioxide dissolves into seawater. Some reacts with water, forming bicarbonate and carbonate ions in a complex balance that affects pH and shell formation. Phytoplankton take up dissolved inorganic carbon during photosynthesis and build organic molecules. Some organisms also build mineral shells or plates. When they die or are eaten, their carbon can remain organic, become dissolved, be respired, or sink in particles. At depth, respiration returns organic carbon to inorganic forms. Circulation may keep that carbon away from the atmosphere until deep waters eventually upwell. Burial removes a smaller fraction for much longer. This is the carbon cycle inside the sea, though even that summary is too clean. Real particles carry nitrogen, phosphorus, silica, iron, trace metals, pigments, lipids, proteins, carbohydrates, minerals, DNA, viruses, living cells, and chemical signals. They are not carbon alone. Carbon is the thread humans follow because of climate, but the particle is richer than the thread. For deep organisms, nitrogen matters. Phosphorus matters. The quality of organic matter matters. Fresh phytodetritus is different from old refractory material. A pellet is different from a loose aggregate. A dead jelly is different from a diatom clump. Food is not just quantity, it is composition, digestibility, timing, and accessibility. A feast that arrives too late for a larval stage may not serve the same function. A particle too small to catch may be unavailable to a filter feeder. A carbon-rich but nutrient-poor particle may support different microbes. Ecology is detail. The deep sea is often described as food-limited,
But limitation is not uniform. Around vents, chemical energy supports dense communities. Around seeps, methane and sulfide can feed microbial symbioses. On whale falls, richness blooms. Under productive surface waters, more snow may arrive. Along margins, organic matter may be more abundant. In oligotrophic open ocean abyss, scarcity can be extreme. The deep is not one condition. It is a mosaic of hunger.
Marine snow is the background falling across the mosaic. Sometimes the background becomes a pulse. In the North Atlantic, spring blooms can lead to significant export events. In parts of the Southern Ocean, iron availability can limit phytoplankton growth, and where iron is supplied naturally, productivity and export can increase. In coastal upwelling zones, nutrient-rich waters support high production and heavy particle flux. In the Arctic, changes in ice and light can alter the timing and nature of material reaching the bottom. Each region tells a different version of the same fundamental story. Light builds matter, gravity moves what remains, the deep responds. This regionality is why a single global number, however useful, cannot capture the lived reality of the snow. 10 gigatons of carbon moved by the biological pump each year is almost beyond imagination. But the deep animal does not experience a global number. It experiences the particle, the patch, the season, the absence. Science needs both the number and the patch. The number tells us scale. The patch tells us life. A camera on the seafloor may record a sea cucumber crossing a field of new detritus. Its movement appears slow, but in its world, it may be responding quickly. It sweeps material toward its mouth. Behind it, tracks remain. Other animals move nearby. Bacteria multiply invisibly. The event may fade within days or weeks, leaving altered sediment chemistry and redistributed carbon. The camera keeps watching. Another pulse may not come for a long time. To us, the scene is quiet. To the sea floor, it is weather. The word weather is useful because it suggests variability without complete predictability. Marine snow has patterns, but not perfect regularity. It has seasons, but also surprises. It responds to distant causes. It shapes behavior. It leaves traces. It is experienced locally. The deep ocean has no wind, but it has particle weather. And like atmospheric weather, particle weather is changing under climate pressure. This does not mean every place will simply receive less snow. Some may receive more. Some may receive different kinds. Some may see timing shifts. Some may experience lower oxygen as decomposition patterns change. Some may be affected by altered circulation. The uncertainty is not a reason to ignore the process. It is a reason to observe more carefully. Observation itself is becoming an act of long attention. Time series stations in the ocean are precious because they return again and again to the same place. They reveal that the sea is not stable background. They show variability across days, seasons, years, decades. They allow scientists to distinguish a single strange year from a trend. In a changing climate, long records become a kind of memory we cannot afford to lose. Deep observatories extend that memory downward. A camera fixed on the sea floor does something profound. It lets the abyss become visible as time, not just as a place visited briefly. It shows animals arriving, particles settling, sediments changing, rare events unfolding. It changes the deep sea from a snapshot into a story. Marine snow needs stories of time. A particle falling is a movement through time as much as through depth. Its freshness declines. Its microbial community changes. Its density changes. Its location changes. The water around it changes. The animal communities it passes through change with day and night. The carbon it carries moves from fast cycles toward slower ones. To follow the particle is to follow time slowing down. This slowing has emotional weight. At the surface, waves break and vanish instantly. Clouds pass. Birds strike the water. Boats cut across swells. Human attention belongs naturally to this quickness. But below, the same ocean teaches duration. The slow accumulation of particles, the delayed arrival of blooms, the centuries of deep water storage, the sediment layers that outlast species, the coral skeletons recording decades. The abyss asks a different kind of attention from us.
The snow cannot be understood in a hurry. Its meaning depends on descent, transformation, delay, and return. There is no single moment when the mystery resolves. Instead, the mystery becomes clearer. The snow is mysterious not because it is supernatural, but because it connects things that feel separate. It makes the ordinary strange. Waste becomes climate. Darkness depends on light. Death feeds life. A microscopic cell affects deep sediment. A falling fleck participates in atmospheric chemistry. The ocean's surface, which seems like a boundary, is only the beginning of a vertical world. From a human shore, the sea often looks horizontal, a line at the horizon, waves moving toward land, ships crossing, currents traced on maps. But the ocean is deeply vertical. Its most important exchanges often happen up and down, light entering, heat mixing, gases dissolving, nutrients rising, animals migrating, particles sinking, waters overturning. The snow is one of the vertical ocean's signatures. To think vertically is to think differently about the planet. It means the sky is linked to mud by chemistry and life. It means a gas molecule above a wave can become part of a shell fragment falling through black water. It means the air is not only above us, it is connected to abyssal time through the ocean's interior. It means the deep sea is not distant in function, even if it is distant in experience. The next time we picture the ocean, we might imagine not just blue surface, but a dim column filled with motion. At the top, sunlight and cells. Below, grazers and pellets. Below that, migrants and predators. Below that, slow snow and patient animals. Below that, sediment and deep water. The whole column alive with exchanges. But there is no need to leave the world of the ocean. The particle is still falling. It has passed through the twilight. It has lost much of its original richness. It is smaller now, less bright under light, more compact in parts, frayed in others. Bacteria remain. A few mineral grains keep it heavy. It sinks through water that has not seen the surface in a long time. Above, perhaps a storm is forming. Above that, air crosses the sea carrying dust from a continent. Above that, satellites watch clouds. None of it is visible here.
Here there is only the black water and the slow descent. A lanternfish turns somewhere above, its light briefly hidden. A siphonophores line drifts like a constellation that forgot the sky. A squid passes and is gone. Tiny particles surround the larger flake, each with its own path. Some rise slightly in a current before sinking again. Some are neutrally buoyant for a time. Some will never reach the bottom. The water column is full of unfinished journeys. The flake continues. At 2,000 meters, pressure would crush an air-filled human structure not built for it. But the particle has no airspace to collapse. It belongs to water.
The animals here belong to pressure as well. Their bodies are not resisting the deep in the way a submarine must. They are made for it. It is our machines that are foreign. The snow is native to every depth it crosses. This is part of its power. It is surface-born, but not surface-bound. It changes enough to keep traveling. It can be eaten by shallow organisms, mid-water organisms, deep organisms, benthic organisms. It is compatible with the whole water column because it is not a single food, but a continuum of material. Some scientists call the more degraded fractions refractory, meaning resistant to further breakdown. Other fractions are labile, easily used by microbes. A fresh particle may contain compounds that are quickly consumed. Older material may persist. The balance between these fractions affects how much carbon is respired at different depths. But again, the technical language points back to a simple question. How edible is the falling world, and for whom? Edibility changes with time. A fresh bloom particle may be rich. A particle chewed and respired for days may be poorer. But poorer does not mean useless. Deep life often specializes in extracting value from what remains. Microbial communities can use compounds that larger animals cannot. Deposit feeders process sediment that seems nearly empty. Food webs in the deep are built around leftovers of leftovers.
There is dignity in such economy. The abyss wastes little because it cannot afford to. A fallen scale, a pellet, a dead copepod, a fragment of mucus, a shell, a strand of tissue, a bacterium-rich clump, all can matter. The snow is not one grand meal. It is an endless negotiation with smallness. On land, abundance often makes itself visible through green. In the deep sea, abundance may be visible only through density of particles, the number of animals on the seafloor, the richness of sediment chemistry, the speed of microbial response. The signs are subtler. We have to learn the deep's vocabulary. A muddy plain with scattered animals may look empty to eyes trained on reefs or forests, but it may be full of slow processes. Tracks show movement. Burrows show occupation. Chemical gradients show metabolism. Microbial life fills sediment. The deep does not perform abundance in familiar colors. Marine snow is one of the few visible signs of its feeding. In artificial light, the flakes seem to come from nowhere. This is because their source is far above and long before. A particle crossing a camera beam has already lived a hidden life. We see only a brief moment of its descent, and then it exits the frame. Most of the pump happens outside the frame. That is true of many important things. The ocean's greatest processes exceed the scale of a human scene. They require imagination disciplined by evidence. They require us to accept that a moment can be beautiful without being complete. A submersible moves forward. The pilot steadies the vehicle above the bottom. The lights sweep over mud, stones, a pale sponge, a fish resting on its fins, a line of brittle stars along a small rise. Snow continues to fall through the beams. Some particles land on the vehicle itself. Some are pushed aside by thrusters. Some settle on the animals. The machine, for a little while, becomes part of the snowfall. Inside, humans watch through glass. They are warm, breathing air, surrounded by electronics, communicating with the surface, aware of pressure outside. They are visitors inside a carbon pathway. The flakes that pass the window may contain atoms that were in the atmosphere months ago, years ago, or longer. They may feed animals the visitors can barely name. They may become part of sediment that outlasts the vessel, the voyage,
the language spoken inside.
This contrast gives the scene its quiet force. Human time is short and nervous. Deep time is broad and slow.
Marine snow moves between them. It begins in the quick turnover of plankton and may end in sedimentary time. It ties the urgent to the ancient. If the subject were only about science, this would be enough. The mechanisms are remarkable. Photosynthesis, aggregation, sinking, grazing, microbial decomposition, carbon export, sequestration, sedimentation. But the deeper feeling comes from recognizing a pattern that resembles something we know in our own lives, though the ocean performs it without sentiment. Nothing remains itself, and yet nothing is entirely wasted. Bodies become other bodies. Breath becomes water chemistry. Light becomes food. Food becomes snow. Snow becomes darkness fed. The danger in saying this is that it can sound too neat. The real ocean is not neat. It includes suffering, predation, starvation, collapse, imbalance, and loss. Many particles vanish before fulfilling the role we might poetically assign to them. Many animals die unfed. Many processes are inefficient. But inefficiency is not failure. It is how ecosystems distribute possibility. A particle eaten in the twilight has not failed to feed the abyss. It has fed the twilight. A particle respired at 500 meters has not failed the climate entirely. It has stored carbon differently than one respired near the surface. A particle buried in sediment is only one outcome among many. The pump is a spectrum, not a moral ladder. Still, depth matters. The deeper carbon goes before returning to inorganic form, the longer it is generally separated from the atmosphere. That is why scientists trace export below certain depths. That is why the twilight zone matters so much. That is why sinking speed matters. That is why microbes dissolving ballast can be important. Small changes in where and how organic matter is transformed can shift the timescale of carbon storage. Timescale is the hidden dimension of the story.
A breath lasts seconds. A phytoplankton bloom lasts days or weeks. A particle falls for days, weeks, sometimes longer. A deep water mass may remain away from the surface for centuries. A sediment layer can persist for millions of years. All of these times touch in the snow. A person standing on a shore inhales. The air contains carbon dioxide shaped by industry, forests, oceans, soils, and time. Some of that carbon will enter the sea. Some may be fixed by plankton. Some may sink. Some may be stored. The path is not guaranteed, not traceable in any simple, personal way, but the connection exists. Our breath and the abyss are part of one chemistry. This should not make the ocean feel smaller. It should make the world feel more continuous. The deep ocean is vast enough to humble every metaphor. It covers most of the planet in darkness. Its average depth is measured in kilometers. Its pressure, cold, and distance defeat casual access. And yet it is connected to a cell in sunlight, to a gas exchange at a wave, to the waste of a tiny animal, to the work of a bacterium. Vastness and intimacy coexist. Marine snow is the evidence. In some places, the snow contains material from land: soot, dust, pollen, soil particles, fragments carried by rivers or wind. Human traces can enter it too. Microplastics have been found in marine environments from surface to deep sea.
and particles can interact with organic aggregates. The modern snow may carry signatures of us in ways the ancient snow did not. Even the deep rain is no longer untouched. This is not the center of the story, but it shadows it. The ocean has always gathered what the world gives it. Now, the world gives it things made by humans at unprecedented scale. Plastics, pollutants, excess nutrients, carbon dioxide, heat. Some of these move downward. Some change the organisms that make the snow. Some alter chemistry. The deep sea is remote, not separate. A future sediment core may read our era in the particles we leave behind.
It may find changes in microfossils, isotopes, contaminants, plastics, oxygen conditions, carbonate preservation. It may read warming, acidification, industrial carbon, altered ecosystems. The snowfall of our time will become a layer. The thought is sobering. But in the present, the particle falls without accusation. It simply enters the next depth. Perhaps it came from a bloom seeded by natural mixing. Perhaps from a coastal plume influenced by human nutrient runoff. Perhaps from a region where warming has shifted the community towards smaller cells. Perhaps from a healthy spring bloom, much like those that have happened for ages. Each flake has a context. The deep receives them all without knowing their politics. At 3,000 meters, the water is black enough that artificial light seems almost solid. The beam creates a small room in the darkness. Snow enters the room and leaves it. Beyond the beam, it continues unseen. This is how knowledge works here. A lit volume inside a vast unknown. The deeper ocean remains one of Earth's least observed systems, not because it is unimportant, but because it is difficult. Ships are expensive, instruments fail, pressure is unforgiving. The ocean corrodes, fouls, moves, and hides. Data arrive slowly, samples are hard won. Yet the need to understand grows more urgent as the planet changes. The snow is a clue we cannot ignore. A climate model that misrepresents carbon export may misjudge future atmospheric carbon dioxide. A fisheries policy that ignores twilight zone migration may affect carbon transport. A deep-sea mining plan that treats abyssal plains as empty may overlook slow ecosystems dependent on limited food. A geoengineering proposal that counts only surface production may fail to account for transformation at depth. Marine snow sits quietly inside decisions far larger than itself. Again, the small thing expands. The flake lands. Or perhaps it does not. Perhaps before reaching the mud, it is eaten by a deep pelagic animal. A small crustacean captures it. The carbon enters muscle, then respiration. It becomes dissolved carbon in deep water. The particle's visible journey ends in a body rather than sediment. This, too, is feeding the deep. The feeding does not require arrival on the seafloor. The deep ocean includes the water column, the animals suspended in darkness, the microbes and migrants and predators far above the bottom, but far below the sun. The deep is not only floor, it is volume. This matters because much of the carbon transformation happens before the bottom. The ocean interior is alive, not just a hallway to sediment. The mesopelagic and bathypelagic zones are enormous habitats. Animals there intercept particles, migrate, respire, and die. Microbes remineralize organic matter throughout the water column. The seafloor receives what survives, but the deep ocean is fed all along the descent. The snow feeds vertically. A particle may nourish a bacterium at 200 meters, a zooplankton at 500, a fish at 1,000, a microbe at 2,000, a sea cucumber at 4,000, and sediment below. The feeding is distributed through depth like notes in a low chord. In darkness, food becomes geography.
The surface ocean is structured by light and nutrients. The deep ocean is structured by arrivals, particles, migrants, carcasses, chemicals from vents and seeps, currents carrying suspended matter. Where arrivals concentrate, life concentrates. Where arrivals thin, life thins. The deep map is a map of delivery. Marine snow is the most widespread delivery. It does not create the spectacular density of a hydrothermal vent community, where tube worms, mussels, crabs, shrimp, and microbial mats can gather around chemical energy. It does not match the sudden feast of a whale fall, but it is broader, steadier, more universal. It is the background income of the abyssal world. Background income may sound modest. On a planetary scale, it is enormous. The ocean's biological pump transfers vast amounts of carbon downward every year. Most returns eventually. Some is stored long enough to matter deeply to climate. The difference between a world with this pump and a world without it would be profound. The atmosphere would hold much more carbon dioxide. The climate would be radically altered. The snow is therefore quiet, but not minor. This combination, quiet and not minor, is at the heart of the mystery.
The scene does not need explosions when the premise is this strange. The air is linked to the abyss by falling debris from microscopic life. The dark ocean is fed by a snowfall made of bodies, waste, shells, mucus, and memory. The climate depends partly on whether those flakes are eaten too soon. The largest habitat on Earth receives its seasons from particles drifting out of light. The story is already vast. All we have to do is stay with it. At the surface, noon burns white on the waves. A small research buoy rises and falls. Below it, sensors record temperature, salinity, fluorescence, oxygen. A drifting float begins another profile, sinking, resting, rising, sending data to satellites when it returns to air. It does not see the ocean as a human eye does. It sees numbers. Yet those numbers are another kind of vision. A chlorophyll signal hints at phytoplankton. Oxygen changes hint at photosynthesis and respiration. Backscatter hints at particles. Nitrate hints at nutrient supply. Profiles become traces of hidden life. Somewhere else, a satellite measures ocean color. It cannot see individual cells, but it detects the pigments they contain. From space, blooms appear as swirls, streaks, cloudy patches of green, turquoise, or milky brightness. Coccolithophore blooms can turn water pale with reflective calcium carbonate plates. Diatom blooms can darken the sea with chlorophyll. The view from orbit is stunning, but it is still only the top of the story. From space, the snow is implied. From depth, the snow is visible. Between those views lies the work. A ship collects water, nets tow through plankton. Incubations measure growth. Traps catch sinking matter. Cameras record particles. Genetic sequencing identifies communities. Chemical analyses trace carbon and nutrients. Models assemble the pieces. Each method has blind spots. Together, they become more reliable. The ocean requires collaboration not as an ideal, but as a practical necessity. No single instrument can hold the whole vertical story. This is why marine snow research often feels like detective work. The evidence is partial and perishable. The suspect is everywhere. The crime scene is moving. The witnesses are microscopic. The timeline extends from minutes to millennia. The clues dissolve, sink, get eaten, or pass beyond reach. And yet, patterns emerge. Particles formed from larger plankton and fecal pellets may sink faster. Microbial respiration reduces carbon flux with depth.
Mineral ballast can increase sinking, but biological processes can remove or alter that ballast. Migrating animals actively transport carbon. The twilight zone is a major site of transformation. The deep ocean stores carbon on timescales that matter to human societies. These are not dry facts when placed back into the water. They are scenes. A salp chain pulsing through clear water. A pellet dropping like a tiny stone. A bacterial film eating into a carbonate-rich flake. A lanternfish descending before dawn with surface carbon in its gut. A sediment trap waiting in darkness. A sea cucumber grazing the remains of a bloom. The story becomes cinematic because the science already has motion. Motion downward, motion upward, motion through bodies, motion through time. Even stillness moves. A deep water mass may seem motionless to us, but it is part of global overturning circulation. Cold, dense waters form in polar regions, sink, spread through ocean basins, and eventually return upward elsewhere. This circulation sets the background for how long respired carbon remains away from the atmosphere. The biological pump delivers carbon to the interior. Physical circulation helps determine its residence time. Biology and physics meet in the dark. The snow falls into moving history. Water at depth carries its own past. Where it last touched air, what temperature and salinity it had when it sank, how much oxygen it contained, what carbon it accumulated along the way. A particle respired into young deep water may have a different future than one respired into older water nearing upwelling. Depth alone matters, but circulation matters too.
The ocean never lets one variable rule alone.
Perhaps this is the deeper lesson for anyone trying to turn the story into a simple moral. The world is not simple, but it is intelligible in pieces. We can learn enough to be responsible without pretending to know everything. We can respect uncertainty without using it as an excuse for inaction. We can recognize the beauty of the pump while understanding its vulnerability. A flake falls. That is the image to return to whenever the system grows too abstract. It passes through black water. A microbe rides it. A mineral grain weighs it. A faint current moves it sideways. An animal opens its mouth. Another waits below. The flake may feed, dissolve, fragment, bury, or vanish. Its possible futures are many. Its existence is enough to reveal the connection. Near the end of its journey, if it reaches the bottom, the particle may join sediment that has been accumulating since long before human history. The abyssal mud is not dramatic to look at. It can be beige, brown, red, gray. It can seem monotonous. But monotony is a failure of our attention. Each centimeter may hold thousands of years in some places, less in others, depending on accumulation rates. Each layer contains the remains of countless falls. A spoonful of deep-sea sediment may hold microfossils from organisms that once lived in sunlight. Their shells sank after death, settled, and became part of the seafloor. Some are exquisitely shaped. Foraminifera like tiny chambers, radiolarians like glass sculptures, diatoms like etched boxes, coccolith plates like miniature shields. These forms, made by life for living purposes, become evidence after death. The snow builds archives out of architecture. Scientists reading these archives can reconstruct ancient climates. They can estimate past ocean temperatures, ice volumes, productivity, circulation, carbon cycle changes. The deep sea preserves,
though not perfectly. Dissolution, mixing by animals, erosion, and gaps complicate the record. But still, the sediment holds memory at a scale no human archive can match.
What falls as food becomes testimony.
This transformation is almost too large to hold. The same rain that feeds a worm may one day help a scientist understand an ice age. The ocean does not separate nourishment from memory. On the seafloor, animals mix the upper sediments in a process called bioturbation. Worms, cucumbers, crustaceans, and other organisms disturb, ingest, and rework the mud. This can blur layers, oxygenate sediments, change microbial processes, and alter preservation. Even the archive is alive before it becomes fixed. History is chewed before it is read. Again, the ocean resists clean categories. A sediment layer is not simply deposited, it is processed. A carbon atom is not simply stored, it is transformed. A particle is not simply dead, it is inhabited. A deep ecosystem is not simply isolated, it is fed by the surface. The more precisely we look, the more verbs appear. Maybe that is what makes the snow feel hypnotic. It is all verbs. Falling, clumping, sinking, dissolving, feeding, breathing, migrating, burying, returning. A noun like snow freezes it for the imagination. The reality is motion. And the motion is still happening now. While a wave breaks somewhere in daylight, particles are falling in darkness. While clouds move over a continent, dust may be crossing toward the sea. While a city exhales carbon, part of the ocean is taking up gas. While a phytoplankton cell divides, another is dying. While a fish rises at dusk, another descends before dawn. While a sea cucumber crosses mud, new particles are forming far above it. The system does not wait for observation. This simultaneity is hard to feel, but it is real. The ocean covers so much of Earth that, at any moment, countless versions of the story are unfolding. A bloom in one basin, sparse recycling in another. A trap collecting particles under polar water, a storm mixing a shelf sea, a salp bloom packaging carbon, a microbial colony dissolving ballast, a deep coral filtering, a trench receiving debris, a sediment layer gaining an almost invisible thickness.
No single narrator could follow all of it. The best we can do is choose one flake and let it lead us. No single flake can stand for them all, but one imagined descent can let the mind follow innumerable particles, each with distinct origins and endings. At the surface, it was part of brightness. In the upper ocean, it became debris. In the twilight, it became contested food. In the deep, it became rare nourishment. At the bottom, it became mud, breath, or memory. This arc is not a hero's journey, it is an ecological journey. There is no triumph, there is transfer. There is no final boundary because the process has no final boundary. Carbon returns, organisms die, sediment buries, currents rise, plankton bloom again. The snow continues. The deep ocean remains fed and hungry at once. There is another way to enter the mystery, not from the falling particle, but from the animals that have learned to read its arrival. A sea cucumber does not look upward in longing. It has no image of the surface. Its world is sediment, current, chemical trace, touch.
Yet its body is organized around the possibility that something edible will come from above. Its feeding tentacles spread over the mud like slow hands. It takes the sea floor in, sorts what can be used, and leaves the rest behind in altered trails. To a hurried eye, this seems like almost nothing. To the abyss, it is work. A brittle star lifting its arms into the current is also reading the water. The arms are not branches in wind, though they resemble them. They are instruments. A particle touches tube feet, spines, mucus, and motion begins. The animal collects what passes. It cannot make food from light. It can only meet what the current delivers. Its posture is a kind of faith written in anatomy. Different sea corals make the same wager more permanently. They anchor themselves where flow is favorable, often along slopes, seamounts, ridges, and canyon walls. Their polyps open into darkness. They feed on small animals and particles, some of them tied to surface production. Their skeletons may grow so slowly that a colony becomes older than nations. In those skeletons, chemistry accumulates layer by layer. A coral feeding in the dark can become a witness to ocean change, holding in its body a record of temperature, nutrients, circulation, and carbon.
Food becomes structure. Structure becomes memory. The deep is full of such conversions. A sponge filters water for years, drawing invisible nourishment from a moving volume. A worm turns sediment and changes how oxygen penetrates the mud. A crustacean scavenges a fresh fall and repackages it. A fish eats the crustacean. A microbe breaks apart what remains. None of these acts are separate from the snow. They are the snow continuing as life. The surface ocean, meanwhile, is also full of readers. Copepods graze in patches where phytoplankton are abundant. Fish follow plankton. Birds follow fish. Whales follow dense layers of prey. The entire upper ocean responds to bloom, light, turbulence, nutrient supply. A feeding event near the surface may seem to end when the animals move on, but the leftovers of that event become the beginning of another food web below. Every messy meal creates downward consequences. Messy feeding is important. A predator rarely consumes prey with perfect efficiency. Scales come loose, tissue tears, cells leak, feces are released, mucus drifts. These fragments are not failures of the food web. They are one of the ways the food web widens. What escapes one mouth enters another pathway. The ocean is built from imperfect capture. Even beauty in the plankton is practical and temporary. Diatoms build silica walls that catch the light under microscopes like stained glass. But the glass is not made for us. It protects, shapes, and helps the cell live. Coccolithophores carry mineral plates that scatter light and may influence sinking when the organism dies. Dinoflagellates move with flagella, some glowing when disturbed. Cyanobacteria drift in numbers beyond easy counting. The forms are astonishing, but none are ornaments. Each is a way of staying alive long enough to divide. When they die, their beauty enters the snow. A diatom shell may remain after the organic body is gone. A carbonate plate may sink with other fragments. A pigment molecule may degrade into a chemical trace. A bloom's architecture collapses and becomes particulate weather. To the deep, the elegance of the cell matters less than its mass, chemistry, and packaging. But to us, knowing the origin changes the feeling of the fall. The flakes in the abyss are not anonymous.
They are made of former shapes.
Some particles are born during catastrophe at a microscopic scale. A virus infects a phytoplankton cell. The cell bursts, releasing organic matter into the surrounding water. This viral shunt can redirect carbon away from larger grazers and into microbial loops, changing what becomes available for sinking. Invisible infections alter the fate of carbon. A bloom can be ended not by exhaustion alone, but by a wave of viruses too small for ordinary sight. The aftermath may feed bacteria, form gels, contribute to aggregates, or be recycled near the surface. Even disease becomes part of the rain. There are also moments when the ocean packages carbon with startling efficiency. Salps, those transparent barrel-shaped tunicates, can filter large volumes of water and release dense pellets. Under certain conditions, their blooms create fast-sinking material that can carry carbon downward quickly. Their bodies themselves may sink when they die, soft and gelatinous, but sometimes abundant enough to matter. They look ghostly, almost insubstantial, yet they can alter the fate of surface production. A creature made mostly of water can help feed the abyss. This is another contradiction the ocean accepts easily. The hard shell and the soft body both sink. The dense pellet and the fragile mucus house both carry material downward. The elegant cell and the torn scrap both enter the same gravity. The deep does not ask whether food came beautifully. It only asks whether it arrives. Arrival can be delayed by the physics of smallness. Very small particles sink slowly. In a turbulent water column, some may remain suspended for long periods, giving microbes time to consume them. Larger aggregates generally fall faster, but size alone is not destiny. Porosity, density, shape, mineral content, and drag all matter. A fluffy particle may be large but slow. A compact pellet may be small but quick. Some particles trail invisible wakes. Some carry mucus that changes how water moves around them. The descent is not simply down, it is negotiated with fluid. At the scale of the particle, seawater is thick. A tiny organism does not experience water the way a dolphin does. For microscopic life, viscosity dominates. Movement is intimate, resistant, strange. A marine snow aggregate falling through this world creates chemical gradients and hydrodynamic fields. Bacteria may sense dissolved molecules leaking from it. Tiny grazers may follow the plume. The particle is not only an object, it is a signal. A falling flake announces itself chemically. In the darkness, smell may matter more than sight. Not smell as humans know it, but detection of dissolved substances, gradients, traces of decay, amino acids, dimethyl sulfide, other cues. Animals and microbes live in a world of chemical information. A particle is food, habitat, and message at once. The snow is therefore also communication. The deep ocean listens with bodies. A scavenging amphipod does not need to understand a bloom to benefit from it. A microbe does not need to know the atmosphere to alter carbon's path. A coral does not need to see the surface to record its changes. Life responds locally to global processes. This is the genius of ecology. No participant needs the whole map for the whole system to function. But humans, having changed the map, now need more of it. Not complete knowledge, that may never be possible, but enough knowledge to understand that the deep sea is not an empty frontier, not a dumping ground, not a silent basement beneath the useful world. It is an active part of Earth's metabolism. It is fed by the snow and changed by the snow, and the snow is changed by us. In the coming decades, pressure on the deep ocean may increase. There are interests in mining polymetallic nodules from abyssal plains, harvesting organisms in the mesopelagic, expanding deep-sea infrastructure, using the ocean for carbon dioxide removal. Each proposal enters a world where recovery may be slow and consequences difficult to see. Disturb sediment that accumulated over millions of years, and the visible scar may last far longer than human planning cycles. Remove animals from the twilight zone, and active carbon transport may change in ways not fully understood. Add alkalinity, nutrients, or biomass, and the snow may respond through pathways no model captures perfectly.
The deep ocean's slowness is not permission. It is a warning that damage can outlast attention. Marine snow makes this warning more concrete because it shows that the deep depends on an ongoing supply line. If that line changes, the consequences ripple downward. If the seafloor is disturbed, the animals processing that supply may be altered. If sediment is resuspended, food quality, filtration, and burial can change. If oxygen declines, the metabolism of communities shifts. The abyss is not separate from human decisions just because it is hard to visit. And yet, fear alone cannot carry the subject. There must also be wonder, because wonder is the beginning of care that does not immediately calculate profit. The deep ocean deserves protection not only as a carbon store, but as a realm of living strangeness. Marine snow deserves attention not only because it helps regulate climate, but because it is one of the great unseen movements of Earth. A planet where the sea snows in darkness is richer than a planet described only by resources. Imagine a child seeing deep-sea footage for the first time. The screen is black, then filled with pale flecks. A strange fish appears, delicate and slow. The child asks whether it is snowing underwater. The answer is yes, but not the kind you think. And then the door opens. The flakes are made of life from above. They feed animals below. They carry carbon. They help shape climate. They become mud. They become history. A simple question becomes a vertical map of the planet. This is how wonder expands. It begins in an image and becomes relationship. For adults, the same expansion can be harder. We are trained to separate subjects: biology, chemistry, climate, geology, technology, policy. Marine snow ignores the separation. It is biology becoming chemistry, becoming geology, while influencing climate and demanding technology to observe. It is interdisciplinary because the ocean itself is not divided by departments. A flake falling through water is a curriculum. It can teach photosynthesis, food webs, microbial ecology, fluid dynamics, carbonate chemistry, climate feedbacks, sedimentology, paleoceanography, deep-sea biology, and the limits of observation. But inside the ocean, it is not teaching, it is feeding. The snow arranges its own sequence: surface brightness, formation, descent, interruption, transformation, darkness, arrival, return. Each phase belongs to a different water. The surface is crowded and luminous. The twilight is suspenseful. The deep water is sparse and vast. The seafloor is quiet but alive. The carbon cycle adds a larger, almost invisible tension. Climate change adds fragility. The motion returns again and again to falling. The snow itself provides the rhythm. It does not rush. It does not stop. It is constantly at risk of disappearing into another process. That risk creates momentum. Will the particle be eaten? Will it sink deep enough? Will it become sediment? Will it feed an animal we have never seen? The questions are simple, but their answers open into science. And beyond the science, there is the feeling of dependence. Every deep-sea organism living away from vents and seeps is, in some way, part of a downward dependence. Some depend directly on particles. Some depend on animals that depended on particles. Some depend on sediment microbes processing fallen matter. The dependence may be distant, indirect, transformed through many bodies, but it is there. The abyss is not self-sufficient in the way it appears. Its independence is an illusion created by darkness. The surface is also dependent. Surface ecosystems depend on nutrients returned from depth by mixing and upwelling. Deep water carries the regenerated nutrients produced when sinking organic matter is broken down. When that water returns to the light, it can fertilize new production. Thus, the fall of snow and the rise of nutrients are linked. The surface feeds the deep, and the deep eventually feeds the surface. The cycle is not a straight donation from above to below. It is a slow exchange.
A nitrogen atom in a phytoplankton cell may sink, be remineralized at depth, travel in deep water, upwell years or centuries later, and enter another phytoplankton cell. The ocean recycles not because it is efficient by design, but because matter persists. Life uses what returns. The biological pump exports carbon, but the nutrient cycles complicate the story. If all nutrients were locked away permanently in the deep, surface productivity would eventually suffer. The ocean's fertility depends on return as much as removal. This is why the pump cannot be understood as simply stronger equals better. Too little export and less carbon reaches depth. Too much permanent removal of nutrients, and future productivity changes. Real systems live in balances shaped by circulation and biology. The snow is part of that balance. Some material must fall, some must be recycled, some must return, some must be buried. The proportions vary across the ocean and through time. The story is not a pipe carrying carbon downward, but a set of branching paths. A particle can split into many futures. The flake in our imagined descent is only one choice among those futures. Another flake from the same bloom may be consumed near the surface within hours. Another may become dissolved organic matter and enter microbial loops. Another may be packed into a pellet and sink rapidly. Another may be incorporated into a migrating animal that carries it downward at dawn. Another may reach the seafloor and be eaten. Another may be buried. One bloom becomes many destinies. This multiplicity is why the snow feels alive even when made of dead material. It is possibility in motion. In a world obsessed with surfaces, marine snow asks us to consider what happens after the visible moment, after the bloom, after the feeding frenzy, after death, after waste, after sinking begins. Much of Earth's functioning lies in afterlives. Soil is an afterlife of leaves, roots, microbes, minerals. Sediment is an afterlife of shells and dust. Fossil carbon is an afterlife of ancient photosynthesis. The deep ocean's food web is sustained by afterlives falling through water. This does not make the story morbid. It makes it honest. Life is not separate from death. Life builds with death constantly. The deep sea is one of the clearest places where this is visible, because without the fall of dead and discarded matter, much of its life would fade. The abyss is not haunted by death, it is nourished by it. There is peace in that, but not comfort exactly. Peace because the cycle is larger than individual endings. Discomfort because the cycle includes everybody. The ocean takes the soft remains of the surface and makes them useful. It does not preserve identity. The diatom does not remain a diatom. The pellet does not remain a pellet. The flake does not remain a flake. The carbon moves on. The deep receives not names, but matter. Human beings often want meaning to preserve identity. The ocean offers another kind of meaning: participation without permanence. A snowflake falls, feeds, dissolves, and is gone. The process remains. At 4,000 meters, if the flake has not been eaten, the seafloor may appear slowly below. At first, only darkness, then a faint texture, then the edge of a ripple, a small mound, the track of an animal, the pale arm of a brittle star. The bottom rises toward the particle, though really the particle is descending toward the bottom. Perspective changes everything. The mud is not passive. It contains oxygen near the surface, then less with depth. It contains microbes using different chemical pathways. It contains burrows that move water and particles downward. It contains animals that sort and ingest grains. When fresh organic matter arrives, the sediment community changes its activity. Respiration increases, nutrients are released. The boundary between water and mud becomes a zone of intense exchange. The seafloor is not the end of the water column. It is an interface. Above it, particles fall. Within it, particles are processed. Below it, chemical gradients continue. In some places, methane seeps upward. In others, hydrothermal fluids emerge. In many places, ordinary sediment metabolism quietly dominates. The bottom is both destination and transformation layer.
A particle buried just below the sediment surface may still be used by microbes. Burial does not automatically mean permanent storage. Oxygen, nitrate, sulfate, methane, iron, manganese, and other chemical players can shape what happens. Organic matter becomes less reactive over time, but some persists. The deeper it is buried, the more it enters geological time, though tectonics, erosion, and uplift may eventually return some sediments to the surface world. The long carbon cycle is almost unimaginably slow. Carbon buried in marine sediments can become rock. Rock can be uplifted. Weathering can draw down carbon dioxide. Volcanoes can return carbon to the atmosphere. Plate tectonics carries carbon through Earth over millions of years. Marine snow is connected to this deep time, though only a small fraction of falling organic matter travels that far into permanence. Most is recycled, but the fraction that escapes matters over geological history. Thus, the flake has a faint connection not only to climate now, but to the making of limestone, chalk, oil source rocks in ancient settings, and the carbon balance of deep time. The ordinary fall of particles has, over Earth history, helped build strata that humans later quarry, drill, study, and stand upon. The seafloor is not below history. It is one of history's workshops. When chalk cliffs rise above a coast, they may contain the remains of countless microscopic marine organisms that lived in ancient seas. Their bodies fell, accumulated, compressed, and became landscape. What once sank through water now meets rain and wind. The vertical cycle becomes visible on land. A cliff can be a frozen snowfall. This is one of the most humbling reversals. The snow that feeds the deep can eventually become stone under the sky. Not all marine snow does this. Most does not. But the possibility reveals the continuity of Earth's systems. The abyssal particle and the mountain road cut are not unrelated. The shell in a plankton bloom and the limestone in a cathedral wall may belong to the same planetary grammar. The ocean writes downward. Time lifts some pages back into light. The story could expand endlessly from here, because every pathway opens another. But the power of the snow is not in endless expansion alone. It is in returning to the simple image with deeper understanding. A fleck falls through dark water. At first, it is strange because snow should not be underwater. Then it is strange because the snow is made of death. Then because it feeds life. Then because it carries carbon. Then because microbes can change its fate. Then because animals migrate around it. Then because it records climate. Then because it links our atmosphere to abyssal mud. By the end, the fleck is still only a fleck, but the world around it has enlarged. That is what a good mystery does. It does not remove strangeness. It makes strangeness more precise. The deep ocean remains mysterious after explanation, because explanation reveals how much is still in motion. We may know more about marine snow than before, but we do not know every particle's path, every microbial interaction, every regional future under warming, every consequence of changing food webs. The unknown is not empty. It is textured by what we have learned. The camera lights catch another flake, then another. The ocean has been doing this for ages without witness. It will continue after the camera leaves, after the ship returns, after the samples are analyzed, after the data are plotted, after the paper is written, after the people who studied it are gone. The snow does not belong to the moment of discovery. Discovery belongs briefly to the snow. This is the right scale of humility. The process is older than our questions. Our questions are young and necessary. We ask because the planet is changing and because beauty invites attention. We ask because the deep sea is vulnerable and because climate depends on hidden pathways. We ask because the darkness is not empty and because what falls through it matters. And then, having asked, we return to the dark water.
Before the final darkness settles, there is one more layer to notice. The snow is also a story of thresholds. There is a threshold where light becomes too weak for photosynthesis, a threshold where migrating animals decide whether to rise or remain hidden, a threshold where a particle becomes large enough to sink faster than it is eaten, a threshold where carbon becomes unlikely to return quickly to the atmosphere, a threshold where carbonate begins to dissolve more readily, a threshold where sediment burial begins to matter. The ocean is full of invisible doors, and the snow passes through them without opening anything. Humans mark some of these doors with numbers. 200 meters, the rough beginning of the dimmer ocean. 1,000 meters, often used as the lower boundary of the twilight zone. 500 meters, sometimes discussed as a depth beyond which carbon may be stored long enough to count as sequestration on human timescales. 4,000 meters, a common depth for abyssal plains. These numbers are useful, but the real ocean is less tidy. Light fades gradually, animal layers move, currents tilt boundaries, chemistry varies by region. A number is a handle on a moving thing. Still, thresholds help the mind descend. At the base of the sunlit layer, the snow leaves the realm where new organic matter is easily made from light. Below that, everything must be carried, hunted, filtered, scavenged, or chemically produced in special places. The particle is now in a world where food has a history. Nothing edible is casual. Every meal has traveled. At the lower edge of the twilight zone, the snow has survived the most active processing layer. The migrants have taken what they can. Microbes have reduced its richness. Some particles have shattered, others have been repackaged. What continues downward has crossed a biological gauntlet. In the bathypelagic, the midnight zone, the flake enters water where the living density is lower and the animals more widely spaced. There are still hunters, drifters, filterers, and scavengers, but encounters become less frequent. The particle's chance of reaching the bottom increases, though it is never guaranteed. Its carbon is now farther from the air in time as well as distance.
At the seafloor, the threshold is physical, water to sediment, but it is also ecological. Food available to suspended animals becomes food for benthic animals and microbes. A falling particle becomes a surface deposit. A surface deposit becomes sedimentary chemistry. The descent turns sideways into tracks, burrows, and microbial gradients. Thresholds are where meaning changes. A dead cell in the surface ocean is debris. In the twilight, it is contested food. In the abyss, it is scarce wealth. In sediment, it is archive or metabolism. The same matter changes significance as it crosses depth. This is why the deep ocean cannot be understood only by cataloging species. Species matter profoundly, but so do flows. Food flow, carbon flow, nutrient flow, oxygen flow, water mass flow. A list of animals without the snow would be like a list of city residents without roads, markets, farms, and power lines. The snow is infrastructure, though it has no fixed shape. It is tempting to imagine infrastructure as solid: bridges, cables, pipes, roads. Marine snow is infrastructure made of decay. Its roots are temporary, its vehicles are particles, its maintenance crew is microbial, and its traffic laws are physics. It is unreliable in detail and reliable in aggregate. It breaks constantly and persists globally. The deep ocean is connected by falling ruins. There is also a sensory world inside this connection that we can only approximate. What does a particle sound like as it lands on abyssal mud? To us, nothing. Our ears are wrong for the scale, but the water may carry tiny disturbances. Animals may sense pressure changes, chemical traces, touch. A deep-sea fish may feel motion through a lateral line. A crustacean may follow a plume. A worm may detect changing chemistry in sediment. The snowfall is silent to us because our senses are not the measure of reality. Darkness, too, is not simply absence. Many deep animals produce light. A flash, a lure, a line of photophores, a burst of blue-green fire when touched. Bioluminescence is common in the ocean interior, especially where sunlight fades, but vision remains useful. The snow moves through this living darkness, sometimes illuminated by creatures rather than machines. A particle may drift past the glow of a siphonophore, the blink of a shrimp, the lure of an anglerfish. The abyss is dark, but not blind. The snow does not glow on its own, usually, but it catches light when light exists. In a submersible beam, it appears white. In the faint glow of an animal, perhaps it appears only briefly, a tiny interruption. In complete darkness, it falls unseen but not unfelt. Visibility is not required for consequence. This is a lesson the ocean repeats in many forms. Invisible gases alter climate. Invisible microbes transform chemistry. Invisible currents carry heat. Invisible particles feed deep animals. The visible world is only the surface of causality. For a long time, the deep sea's invisibility protected it from certain kinds of attention and exposed it to others. It could be imagined as empty because few people saw it. It could be used as a place to discard because it seemed distant. It could be treated as limitless because its scale overwhelmed responsibility. Marine snow undermines those illusions. If the deep is fed, it is alive. If it is alive, it can be harmed.
If it stores carbon, it participates in the shared atmosphere. If it records history, it is not a void, but a memory system. The snow gives the deep a pulse we can understand. Not a heartbeat, exactly. More like a metabolism. Uptake above, transport through the middle, transformation below, return through circulation. The whole ocean acting as a body, though not a body with a single will. A distributed metabolism made of plankton, animals, microbes, currents, minerals, and time. Metabolism produces waste. Waste becomes food. Food becomes motion. Motion becomes pattern. Pattern becomes climate. The cycle is almost too elegant, except that elegance suggests smoothness, and the real process is ragged. Particles break, animals miss meals, carbon returns too soon, oxygen is consumed, communities shift. The pump is imperfect in the way all living systems are imperfect. Its roughness is not a flaw outside the system, it is the system. In a laboratory, researchers sometimes create roller tanks to study aggregates. The tanks turn slowly, keeping particles suspended so they can collide and form marine snow-like clumps. This is a small imitation of the sea's gentle turbulence. Inside glass, flakes grow, sink, break, and reform. Scientists can examine how different organisms, minerals, and mucus affect aggregation. It is not the ocean, but it is a way to ask the ocean a controlled question.
There is something poignant about trying to recreate a snowstorm in a cylinder. The real storm is planetary. The cylinder is small enough to lift, but within that smallness, patterns emerge that help interpret the vastness. Science often works by making a piece of the world small enough to study, without forgetting that the real world is larger. Forgetfulness is the danger. A particle in a tank is easier to understand than a particle in the sea, but also less entangled. It does not cross migrating layers, shifting currents, unknown microbes, hungry animals, and changing chemistry in the same way. So the controlled study must return to field observation, and field observation must return to controlled study. The snow requires both intimacy and scale. Intimacy comes from seeing the flake. Scale comes from knowing the ocean is full of them. The emotional power comes from holding both at once. The flake is fragile enough to vanish between fingertips. The collective fall is strong enough to help shape the atmosphere. Perhaps the deepest mystery is not that small things matter. Science has shown that again and again. The mystery is that they matter through such indirect routes. A microscopic plant does not cool the planet by intention. A fecal pellet does not store carbon by purpose. A bacterium does not alter a sinking rate in order to change climate. Yet the result of countless purposeless actions is a planetary function. Meaning emerges from need, not design. This should make us careful with the word purpose. The snow feeds the deep ocean, but it was not made for that purpose in any conscious sense. It exists because organisms live, feed, die, excrete, shed, and decay in water where gravity operates. The feeding of the deep is an emergent generosity. No single creature gives, the system delivers. There is a stark beauty in emergent generosity. A bloom does not know the abyss. The abyss does not know the bloom. Still, they are connected. A creature in darkness does not know the sun. Still, it eats the sun's remains. A human breath does not know the deep. Still, carbon from air may find its way down. The world is full of relationships without awareness.
Marine snow is one of them. When the final flake of this imagined descent nears the bottom, it carries all of these relationships in miniature. Not visibly. Under a microscope, it would still look like a ragged aggregate, a bit of organic matter, mineral dust, microbes. But knowing its path changes it. It becomes a meeting point. Atmosphere, sunlight, plankton, grazer, microbe, current, pressure, animal, sediment, climate, time. That is too much meaning for one particle, unless we remember that the particle is only a doorway. Beyond it is the whole falling sea. And beyond the doorway, the sea keeps adding versions. A particle made mostly of diatoms has a different weight and future than one made of tiny cyanobacteria. A particle formed in cold water may be processed differently from one formed in warm water. A pellet from a large grazer may plunge quickly, while a loose cloud of dissolved material may stay near the surface and feed microbes there. The snow is never just snow. It is biography disguised as matter. Even the color can tell a story. Fresh material from a bloom may carry greens and golds. Older particles become browner, grayer, more mineral, more ghost-like. Under deep lights, color is altered, flattened by the beam and the camera, but the chemistry remains. Pigments degrade in patterns. Lipids persist or vanish. Proteins are consumed. Shells dissolve or survive. What a flake is made of changes what it can become. A single storm can change the next chapter. Wind can stir nutrients into the lit layer, helping a bloom begin. It can also mix particles downward or break delicate layers apart. Rain can change surface salinity. Dust can bring iron to waters that need it. Rivers can deliver sediments and organic matter from land. The ocean's surface may look like a boundary between worlds, but it is constantly being crossed by air, water, dust, heat, and life.
Then the boundary's consequences fall. In this way, marine snow is not only oceanic. It is atmospheric, continental, biological, geological. A grain of desert dust may help fertilize plankton far from land. A volcanic ash layer may settle through water and later appear in sediment. Smoke particles can enter the sea. River-borne material can be carried offshore and sink. The deep receives traces of lands it will never touch. This should change how distance feels. The abyss beneath the open Pacific may contain particles influenced by winds from continents. The mud below the Atlantic may hold remains of organisms whose growth depended on nutrients mixed by winter storms. A deep trench may collect matter from slopes shaken by earthquakes. No place is entirely alone. The planet specializes in long-distance intimacy. The snow that feeds the deep ocean is one expression of that intimacy. It does not ask whether the source was beautiful or ugly, natural or altered, microscopic or massive. It takes what enters the water column and submits it to the same slow questions. Will it clump? Will it sink? Will it be eaten? Will it dissolve? Will it reach the dark? Will it be remembered in mud? Most answers are temporary. The falling continues. And still, there is a place where the story can settle. The camera is close to the sea floor now. The light is low. Mud stretches beyond the frame. A few brittle stars hold their arms into a current too gentle for us to feel. A sea cucumber moves with nearly imperceptible intent. Tiny tracks cross the sediment and disappear into darkness. Above, flakes drift down one by one,
some bright in the beam, some barely visible, some turning slowly as they fall. There is no music in the water, only the imagined sound of distance. A particle lands near a small ridge in the mud. For a moment, it keeps its shape. Then the edges loosen. Bacteria have already begun. A minute passes. An animal nearby shifts. Another flake lands farther away. The beam catches more snow behind it, falling from a height the camera cannot show. Nothing announces itself as important. The abyss does not change expression, but the deep has been fed. Somewhere far above, light touches the surface again. Waves lift and fold. Phytoplankton drift in the morning water. A cell takes in carbon. A grazer beats its limbs. A pellet forms. A transparent sheet gathers debris. Another flake begins its descent. The ocean keeps sending the sky downward. Not all at once, not loudly, only in fragments, through blue water, through twilight, through blackness, through mouths and microbes and time. The snow falls into the deep, and the deep receives it without answer.